I'm Jay from Gallifrey Public Radio, a Doctor Who podcast and part of the Gunny Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other incredible geeky shows at GunnyGeekNetwork.com.
Dr. Tom.
Are you telling me you built a time machine?
There is no school.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Well, let me finish them, please.
I only have one rule. Everyone fights, no one quits.
Welcome back to the Sci-Fi Sunday podcast. I'm your host, David S. Dawson. It is the end of 2019, and we are coming at you with a final podcast, maybe the final. We might have one more coming tomorrow, possibly. We'll see how timing works out. But this is definitely the last or the penultimate episode, depending on how it goes tomorrow. And we are concluding our Rise of Skywalker countdown with an actual spoiler-filled episode about the Rise of Skywalker. Joining me to spoil the hell out of this final movie in the Skywalker Saga are my very, very dear co-hosts, my sister Theresa.
What's up?
And our buddy Mike Peterson.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
Way to keep up with it, Mike.
Yeah,
I try.
Did you manage to do that in every episode?
No, I think last one I didn't.
Yeah. Last one was the spoiler-free episode.
No, sorry.
It was like an episode light.
The last one he did was
I missed Last Jedi, so I think Force Awakens.
Force Awakens.
Right. Okay. Well, shame on you for not keeping it up all the way through. Sorry.
Sorry, I wasn't on Force Awakens, so I didn't know.
There is no try.
There you go. Making up for it.
Theresa, you and I spoke when we did the spoiler-free one.
Right.
How proud we are that we got through all of
Yeah.
these.
So with the three of us, I mean, David, obviously you're the main host, so you hit home all of them. I only missed one, and literally that was because I had a Christmas party I had to be at. Mike, you only missed one because you were on a family vacation in Florida, but still managed to somehow get one in
While on vacation.
So, but I think the three of us spearheaded it well. The three of us pushed to try to make sure we got this done, and stuff like that. So I'm proud of us for doing it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And it made the viewing for this movie specifically
a million times better.
Way better.
Right? Yeah. I am a firm believer that our appreciation of the Rise of Skywalker was made better by the fact that we took this deep dive into all of these movies leading up to it.
Yep.
Well, and the deep dive too was awesome because it wasn't just so much because a lot of people did just rewatch. Okay. But you kind of got into how many times have you look, Star Wars is on, and you just have it playing, and you don't
mindlessly let it
mindlessly watch. And we were talking about, Mike and I were talking about this too.
Things.
Yeah, exactly. You don't actually sit there and really try to look and catch as much as you can. And even still, the podcast, what helped for me at least, is even though I caught a lot of things and it reminded me a lot of stuff, or I actually understood things differently than before, was also listening to everybody else's they caught and stuff. And some of the things I still didn't catch or maybe not understood.
Mm-hmm.
One of you guys were able to explain it to me. So
I think that's
that helped.
A really interesting point because we've talked a lot about toxic fandom on the podcast even before this happened. Toxic fandom has been a topic of conversation amongst us and our group of friends for a while. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about this deep dive is the fact that we each came at it from our own generational point of view.
Yep.
Right.
Which is huge.
Brian and I are 1970s babies, right? Star Wars has been our life for as long as we can remember, right? And they were new from as far back as we can remember, right? Theresa, you were born in 79, so it wasn't really until Jedi that you...
Yeah, I'm kind of more with the 80s
theater,
babies.
But you were still only 4, you know?
Yeah, so I'm
you
more
grew
with
up
the
with
80s.
it on home video.
Yeah.
Wasn't new. It was already kind of established. And in some ways, interestingly enough, already established as kind of a boys thing.
Yes. Yeah. So when I was a kid, no, I did not get to see in either one of those of Star Wars of the original series 4, 5, 6 in theaters. So I was introduced on VHS. That's
an HBO.
And HBO, you know, and it was my dad and my brother showing it to me. And yes, at that time, it was not a girl's thing to do.
Yeah.
It was not something that girls really got into. And if they did, we definitely didn't talk about it. So,
yeah,
you know, that was interesting. So, but for me though, the first time I ever got Star Wars and got to be part of the fandom of it was 1, 2, 3. So yeah, I probably fall more in, even though I was born in the 70s, I fall more into the 80s babies.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause you were born mid 79. So
yeah.
You're definitely an 80s child.
Yep. Mike,
born in the 80s, but really didn't become a Star Wars person until the 90s.
Yep. When the special editions came in theaters.
Right. So about 97.
97.
So even late 90s at that.
Yep.
So you have a whole different generational perspective on it too, because it already existed. You came in the fervor leading up to it coming back, really.
Right. Exactly.
Which is an interesting time to join in, because I was super excited at that time, because like, oh, my fucking childhood is coming back to the big screen. How awesome is this? And they made new updates to it. You know, we were all excited about these updates at the time. You know, some people liked them, some people didn't, you know.
But that's the first versions he got.
That's the first versions you saw as the special editions. So that is Star Wars to you.
Yep.
Yeah. So
you haven't seen the originals.
No.
Yeah.
Now you have a copy of the despecialized editions.
But I have no Blu-ray player to play it on.
Well, you come here and we will watch them. Let's do a Saturday. Let's watch the despecialized editions.
Yep.
And then let's have a discussion about your take on the original cuts versus the cuts you grew up with, and see what you preferred.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I think that'll be an interesting conversation to have. But what I like is that we all came at it from these different perspectives, right?
Yeah.
And the toxic fandom thing, I think what I've seen more and more is it's oftentimes a generational thing, you know? Like, depending on what era you came in, there are things that you like or dislike about the quote unquote Disney era of Star Wars.
Right.
Right. And it varies to wild degrees, but almost in predictable manners based on where you came in on Star Wars. Right. And to some degree too, on your gender.
Yes.
You know, because there are a lot of guys who don't like that the ladies are so central in the Disney stories, which I find exceptionally and exceedingly bizarre, considering how
Leia,
diverse Star Wars is.
Yeah,
right from the
Leia,
start.
who is such a strong female character.
She was the strongest character of the original 3, really. You know, so it's just interesting, you know, and kind of the overdone hero worship of Luke Skywalker. There's varying degrees of Gen Xers versus millennials and how they see that character long term too. And then it's also a lot of like, how much of the extended universe did you read back in the day, which are now legends? How much of the current novels are you into? There's so much about Star Wars that affects how you view it. And what I really enjoyed about the podcast is getting multiple perspectives on these movies.
Yeah.
And expanding each of our views on it by hearing each other out.
Right. Well, and because of the whole thing of me being the main solo female of the group during this set of reviews, I wanted to try to make sure as much as possible to be that female voice. You know, because it was because I was a full part of the whole being a Star Wars fan, but being a woman and it not being cool and not being okay. And
I'll break it to you this
and
way,
they're
though,
never,
T,
but
it was never cool to be a male Star Wars fan growing up either. So
it's very true. It's very true. But it was like a million times worse for me as a girl, you know, but to then watch it grow and watch it, to never have, unless you wanted to be Princess Leia in the gold bikini, basically, or just the white outfit. That was really all there was available, and that was it. That's all you got, for cosplay and anything like that. But
I've never understood why more ladies didn't dress in the Endor greens. I mean, that was a cool outfit.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know.
That was the dawn of General Leia, really.
Yeah, I would have
if
done
it
that
wasn't
one.
so hot, the Hoth one would have been awesome in San Diego.
The Hoth outfit is great.
The all white. Yeah. So, but that's what it was. That's all you got.
Yeah.
So I like seeing it now where it is, where it's so much more ranged. And it's, and then of course, obviously you can just be a female Jedi and you can wear whatever. Cause a lot of times between the male Jedi clothes and the female Jedi clothes is
very similar.
So it's, it's not that hard,
Yeah.
So for me personally, it's been a fun journey to watch that growth.
We kind of talked about this in the spoiler-free version, how we did this kind of with Marvel leading up to Infinity War and Endgame, and how we caught a lot of the little things that Marvel knew that they were doing a long time ago.
Real early on. Yeah.
Back to Captain America, Civil War, all that kind of stuff. And you really put that stuff together.
A long time ago, but to be fair, a quarter of the time that Star Wars is
that's where I'm getting to is the fact that you have 42 years versus 10.
Yeah.
And even though you still have essentially 3 kind of series, your prequels, your originals, and then this set, they all have their tie-ins and all throughout the series, the saga,
right.
The Skywalker Saga. So this was, especially when we did it each week, and we actually did it with Marvel. We kind of skipped a couple here and there. We hit the big ones. But this was really cool to see.
Yeah.
Well, I know that we inspired a bunch of people to watch the movies leading up to it. Whether they actually listen to the podcast or not, I do know that because we were, we would tell our friends and stuff like that, what are you guys doing? We're like, oh, no, it's Star Wars night. We have homework. We have to watch our movie. They're like, well, you've seen it. I said, no, we're,
Yeah, well, I'm thinking I might post these notes that I've been writing. Because I got a pencil for my iPad specifically because I wanted to do notes while watching movies.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the epitome of that was last night, taking the iPad to the movie theater on the 3rd screening of Rise of Skywalker, but taking notes while I watched the film. So I've been thinking I might post these notes on the website as well.
So that'd be fun.
People
I think
can
you
see
should.
my notes. And kind of see where the structure of the episodes
Yeah. I mean, I never took Mike took notes on quite a bit of the episodes. I never took notes.
Yeah.
I very in-depth watch and stuff, but I didn't take notes.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I would have definitely watched Force Awakens and Last Jedi, but I don't know if I would have done the entire saga leading up to this movie.
Right.
Definitely Last Jedi because I'd seen it once in theaters up to this point. But
which, by the way, real quick, since Mike wasn't part of Last Jedi.
Yes. Yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan. I didn't hate it like a lot of other people, but I gave it a solid 5 out of 10. I was entertained, but again, what everyone went into that movie with expectations of what Star Wars is.
Right.
And you watch it once in the theater, right?
Yep, just the one time in theater. Mostly because I just got busy and just didn't have a chance to go back for a second viewing. But the fact that I saw this now 2 years later and going in with a way more open mind.
And also going in to watch it after watching
all these
whole series,
yep.
right? really does affect how you appreciate the movies if you can watch all the films leading up.
I went from Last Jedi being a 5 to a good 8.
That's a huge jump.
That's a huge jump.
I mean, that's a massive jump going from a failing grade to a solid B.
Yeah. There is so much going into that movie that I just, and I think I would have appreciated it if I would have gone and seen it again a second time, either in theaters or surely when it got released on digital. But I think the fact there was a 2-year gap, and again, with leading everything up to it, made it that much better.
Yeah. Cool. Well, why don't we jump into the Rise of Skywalker, and because this is going to take a little bit of time. I'm not going to lie.
Scroll.
So let's start
With the scroll.
Start with all of these with a crawl.
3 words.
The dead speak.
I mean, come on.
What?
I mean, which, by the way, I sat next to David, so thank you for reading,
Yeah, it was nice to get to read it to you one last time.
Yeah. Yeah. I just turned, I'm like, David. He was like, oh, yeah. Okay.
So getting to read that out loud to my sister, I wanted to shout it, because I was like, oh my God. What an opening. That whole crawl is full of, again, buzzwords and stuff. I will say this. I think Abrams writes better crawls than the rest of the series.
Yeah.
Whether you enjoy the rest of his movies or not, that's a whole nother take, but I really enjoy his crawls. So a little bit different opening here, right? The movie, we do the classic tilt down, which means we still only have one movie in the entire 9 that does the opposite.
That went up.
Right. I was wondering if anybody would ever do it again. But they left that. That was Lucas's one, do what you please. Right.
Yeah.
So we tilt down into what? A montage.
All about the montage.
All about the montage. And this is what I wrote about it. I'm like, and mind you, I've seen the movie 3 times, right? So this film has a lot of story to tell and no time to waste. It's also filled with slow-mo in this montage, which, heretofore has been rarely used in the films. Like we made a mention about it with the Last Jedi review, that lightsaber duel, where the two, Kylo and Rey, are back to back and they're fighting the Red Praetorian Guards.
Yep.
Like that was a unique thing to see lightsaber action in slow-mo. Like, the only other time you'd ever seen that before was Luke Skywalker on Dagobah. Lightsaber duels aren't shot that way until now. And here we are at the very beginning of Rise of Skywalker, and we've got slow-mo montage lightsaber action on Mustafar.
Yep.
I'm not sure who he was battling down there, but we visit a lot of Star Wars planets in this movie.
Yeah, we bounce all over the place.
Yeah, like I said, this movie's got a lot of story to tell and no time to waste, and it's just.
And in all honesty, if you don't catch it, you're not going to catch it.
Yeah, from this point forward, it's just like boom, 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 boom. Everything comes at you, and it's become pretty clear to me, reading a lot of people's reviews. There were some people who were disappointed in the film, and there's naturally always going to be a certain contingent of the fandom that's disappointed in these movies because it's not what they expected or wanted or enjoyed. And that's fine. But there's a certain contingent of people who grumbled about this movie in the first 48 hours, who went back for their mandatory second screenings in the last 5 days and have gone back onto social media and said, I was wrong. This movie rocks.
Yeah.
There is so much happening and it comes at you so fast. I think a lot of casual viewers have a hard time absorbing it all on one viewing.
Yes.
And that is something that I think is very different with the sequel trilogy over all the rest of them, is the pace is so fast in these films because that's what modern audiences expect.
They want you to hit them fast right off the bat. And this one especially, even though it's a slow-mo battle, it still comes at you
still fast.
It's still fast, and it comes right at you, and it's quick cuts. And if you're not looking, you're gonna miss it.
Yeah.
You know.
Now that's an interesting filmmaking point too. So when the original Star Wars films were shot and edited, they were shot and edited on film, which is a very slow process. It's very tedious to cut on film, and you were conservative about how often you cut, because every cut on film costs you money, right? They shot the prequel trilogy mostly on digital.
Yep.
And those were the first Star Wars movies to be edited digitally. And the editing is faster and a bit more furious in those films. These films were shot on film, but still edited digitally, and edited with 20 or 30 years of digital editing experience behind people's backs. And you have editors now who edit very differently from how editing was done back in the day.
Yeah.
Right. So naturally, these movies are progressing and adopting a more and more modern style in their editing. And I think that's a huge part of things that kind of jars a lot of people who revere the original films, is the change of pace. The pace in these is wicked fast compared to the original.
Yeah, well, and a lot of people don't understand that editing can absolutely affect the pace of a film.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
like, even if the action on the screen can be fast paced and stuff going on, if the edit is slow, it's not. But you can actually speed up the action even more so with fast editing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think just, and
again,
it gives
works
them
for
more
some people,
intense.
but some people don't like fast edits. And I understand that. And if that's one of the reasons why you don't like this movie, totally valid. And nobody can argue with you on that.
Yeah.
Because it does move fast and it's edited very fast.
Yep.
Super quick cuts. And it all starts right here with this montage. Just like boom, 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 boom. Keep pace or fall behind.
Yeah. I remember when we got through this first little bit, I remember just went, ooh, okay. So this is how we're going to go. This is going to be a real interesting 2.5 hours, you know, like.
Yeah. So, Kylo's on the hunt, and eventually he finds what he's looking for. He finds a Sith holocron.
Which,
holy shit.
You and I both lost our freaking minds. They did it. They did it in the movies.
They brought a holocron to the films. I was so happy. They don't call it a holocron.
Yep.
They call it a Sith Wayfinder, which one of the things I said about bringing a holocron into the movies is then you have to get into the exposition about what a holocron is and blah, 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 blah. And they kind of got around all of that by showing it in the Jedi texts, right? Which may or may not have been Luke's notes inside the Jedi texts. But then just calling it a wayfinder, which is easier for people to understand. Wayfinders
just a compass, basically.
Are a compass, and they help you get
Yeah, I'm sure that was probably.
You don't have to get deep into the lore of the holocron.
Yeah, you can kind of figure it out.
Yeah, but for those people who are deep divers in Star Wars,
you know what that is.
It was a holy shit moment. It was like, fucking A, there's a holocron. And I imagine they're going to sell a whole lot more holocrons at Galaxy's Edge now.
Right.
Now that people have seen something that looks like it on film. But yeah, very cool to see that. Then Kylo takes that holocron, goes to Exegol, and enters an enormous Sith temple. And
massive.
This is the first time we've seen a Sith temple on film too.
Yep.
Right. We've seen it in Clone Wars. We've seen them in Rebels, and they're always massive and like gorgeous, interesting structures. And this one really doesn't fail to meet that either.
Very grandiose.
It's a very grandiose building that seems to float.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
it's above.
You walk underneath it. And I didn't see any walls connecting it to the ground.
No.
So it floats and there's electricity banging in between it and the ground, and cool. I mean, it's just cool. And then Kylo descends down into the caverns below, and they've got the giant statues and stuff. And that stuff is straight out of the animated stuff.
Yeah.
Which I loved seeing. It's out of the comic books too. Wonderful. And I don't know, like, J.J. Abrams was always a Star Wars fan. Like, he always said that. Even when he took over Star Trek, he kind of brought Star Wars to Star Trek, right? Like he turned
the warp tunnel.
He turned Kirk into Luke, in some ways in that very first Star Trek movie. But I don't know how deep JJ got into a lot of the Star Wars lore, But what I got in this movie watching it is him and Chris Terrio, who helped him write it. They obviously dug deeper than he did when he made The Force Awakens.
Right.
Because there is so much more here that calls back to animated series, to comics, to the greater stories at large. So I gotta give my hats off to JJ and Chris Terrio. I didn't expect there to be so much more brought in from those kind of peripheral properties as there was in this.
Yeah.
Right.
And not over the top. Just
no.
Little bits and
enough
pieces.
Just
where
again, if you're a deep
didn't follow
diver,
it,
if you didn't follow it,
Doesn't
it's
hurt.
cool new stuff you're looking at.
Yep.
If you followed all the rest of Star Wars, you're like, wow, I'm actually getting to see this on a giant freaking screen.
Yep.
Right. How great was watching it in RPX?
ugh,
That screen's enormous. It's gorgeous. And that was a brand new theater too, so the projectors were super bright. Oof. I saw it in 3D on that screen a few nights ago.
I'll have to do 3 days.
It was amazing. So you go down, we hear the Emperor's voice talking to Kylo, and he says those great lines. I've been every voice
In your head.
in your head, and it morphs into Snoke and it morphs into Vader. It's a beautiful moment. Again, if you read the novels and stuff, especially the novel for The Force Awakens, there's been a lot of arguments about how much of this movie is a reaction to The Last Jedi and trying to rewrite things. And was Palpatine really the plan all along?
Mm-hmm.
If you read the novelization of The Force Awakens, and if you read the Aftermath novels, which came out around the same time to kind of lead into The Force Awakens by telling the final story of the Empire, I feel like this is where JJ intended to take these stories all along, because Rey hears the Emperor's voice in her head when she's battling Kylo in the novelization for The Force Awakens.
Interesting.
He tells her to strike him down, do it, right? And Ben is hearing voices of Vader and Snoke and whoever in his head as well. And in the Aftermath novels, Palpatine is constantly looking beyond the outer rim into the unknown regions because there's some dark force drawing him there that he knows is important to his future. And the Aftermath novels are all about basically him sending out the remnants of the Empire, kind of destroying as much of it as need be to get rid of the weakest. And he takes children and the strongest Empire remnants out into the outer regions, and nobody knows why. Right? That stuff was all set up in the novels. And it all comes to fruition here in this movie. So some of those things didn't make it like the dark voice in Rey's head. You don't hear that in The Force Awakens, the movie, but it's definitely in the novelization. The novelizations are considered canon. So those aspects of those movies that didn't make it into the final cut of the films, but stayed within the novelization, show you the direction they were going when they were originally putting the films together. Right.
Interesting.
So I really feel like there was a lot of that there, that JJ really didn't course correct a whole lot. This was always where he thought the story would go. Rian Johnson obviously had his own ideas on where things should go and made adjustments that he wanted to make, which maybe weren't exactly where JJ thought the second episode would go. But I think JJ Abrams made the third episode that he wanted to make,
And he didn't undo anything that Rian Johnson did.
He expanded it.
Yep. And did it very well.
Yeah. Yeah. Respectfully.
Just think about the whole Palpatine is in the voice in your head, right? Goes back to prequels 1, 2, 3, right? And we had this discussion about the dreams Anakin's were having and the things and stuff like that. And we're like, how much of all that is Palpatine putting and manipulating in his head?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that Anakin becomes Vader and he guides Anakin to where he needs Anakin to be.
Yep.
So,
and in the comics, it's been shown in recent comics, which came out after The Last Jedi, but before this movie. But there is a series of comics where they show the Emperor manipulating midichlorians in Shmi to create Anakin. There's another comic run where they show the Emperor manipulating Luke Skywalker by putting doubt and whatnot into his head while he's sleeping and altering his dreams.
Oh, cool.
And imprinting the idea of a X-wing underwater, of being alone, of walking away from everything. You know, like a lot of the Last Jedi deal is the sort of thing that Palpatine was trying to convince Luke to do early on when he was battling against Vader. Was like, you're not strong enough. You're going to fail, and you're going to walk away, and you're going to hide. And so, you know, some of it's retconning, some of it's, you know, makes sense if you've been watching these things without that stuff too. Like, you can come up to the same conclusions on your own. But they have been trying to make that stuff clearer in the comics and the novels and stuff.
Yeah.
But what I love about it in the end is the Emperor is the great puppet master, right? Like, everybody wanted to know who Snoke was. It doesn't matter who Snoke is. In the end, he's just the puppet of the Emperor.
I mean, you pass by 2 clone bodies of Snoke.
I think there were 3 inside.
Is there 3?
I couldn't. I knew I saw 2, but it's possible there's.
But yeah,
they were all
cloning.
Around each
Cloning
other.
has always been like, okay, where is this going to go? Because in the
but what I get out of that is like, these aren't perfect clones either. No. It's not the Camino cloning facility, which the Emperor destroyed because he didn't want anybody else to have cloning technology.
Yep.
After he'd gained power, he didn't want anybody else to come up with a clone army. So for me, it's like, he's got the cloning technology. He's figured out how to use Sith powers to force his essence into the new clone, but it's an imperfect process, and the Sith faithful haven't perfected it yet.
Right.
And that's why Snoke looks like the way Snoke looks like. It's not because he was in any sort of battles or anything. He's just a really crappy clone.
Yep.
Right? He's a crappy clone of whoever they were cloning. He's just an imperfect copy, you know? Because you look at the Emperor, when you finally get to see him.
Dude, he's decrepit.
He's decrepit and not perfect either. You know?
He's got life support.
Yeah, he's barely holding on.
Oh, yep.
So I think it's all really cool.
I didn't expect to see the Emperor this quickly. Like, I did not expect to be thrown into this movie
right off the bat. The dead speak.
Yep.
Right.
Nope. I'm expecting Emperor maybe halfway through. Most villain reveals.
No, they give it you right off the bat.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but the whole Emperor, because he's attached to that arm that moves him around. All I could think of was Captain EO and the Queen.
Yeah.
So I don't know why, but it's like, that was the first thing that popped in my head. I'm like, oh, look, Disney.
A Disney and Lucasfilm.
Mm-hmm. A Disney and Lucasfilm.
Nice.
So, you know, maybe a little throwback.
Possibly. This is also where the Emperor tells Kylo he needs to go kill the girl and says, you know, she's not who you think she is. Kylo says, who is she? And we just get a smile from Papa Palps.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which I think is coy, you know, like, here's the tease, right? Some of us have thought she might be a Palpatine all along.
Yep.
And we talked about it when we reviewed The Force Awakens.
We did.
Her fighting style was very similar to Palpatine. And, you know, she has that stabby motion and whatever. And yes, it makes sense from a bow staff attacking style, but it's also the primary attack style of Palpatine. So again, I don't think JJ was doing anything lightly in what he did in The Force Awakens. I think there was more thought to it than people realized. And I do think it was intentional for her to have that fighting style. We go from that to seeing Poe and Finn, trying to get the information,
from the spy,
from the spy,
yep.
From a messenger from the spy.
Yep.
I loved Julio. I thought he was a cool character design. And on top of that, he's voiced by Mark Hamill.
Yep.
Oh,
yeah.
So when you go back and watch it again, win the war.
Yeah,
that's Mark Hamill.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun. The boys in the Falcon, fast and reckless, like Han Solo.
Like Han Solo.
I love Poe. I'm sorry, Chewie. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
I know.
Well, she's not here, like.
Yeah, it was really funny. I enjoyed that bit. Fun to see Finn in the gunner's position again, since that's where we essentially first met him. Really, was in the gunner position with Poe.
Yep.
But also in the gunner position on the Falcon, which he did with Rey. So that was nice. It was nice to just kind of see these characters, several years down the line, finding their rhythms.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, what I loved about this is it real quickly establishes where, especially Finn and Poe are, where they are character wise, like where they are in their relationship, the friendship and this and that and the high pace and the banter and whatever. So like right off the bat, you're like, oh, okay, good. They're really good friends. And they're,
right down, and I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit, but right down when the Falcon lands at the base and Rey comes up, she's like,
best.
She's bitching to him about the fire. He's bitching to her about the droid.
And Finn's like, oh, come on, guys, really?
And she walks up to Finn and goes, is he in a bad mood? He's like, when's he not?
Yeah. Yeah. The little sass. He's like, when is he not? And then he's like, they're, Poe and Rey are, going back and forth. And Finn's just like, come on, guys, really? Like, can we not do that this time?
Yeah, they do a very good job of establishing a new history with these characters.
Yeah.
They've obviously been hanging out a lot. Right down to Poe arguing that Rey shouldn't be staying out of the fight anymore.
Right.
Like, what are you training for? You're our best fighter anyway. Come out and fight,
Yeah.
And it is an interesting setup. And again, I want to go back here a little bit because I got other things to talk about, but it's an interesting little setup. The idea that Poe doesn't really understand all the Force stuff. Right. Like he's outside of that circle.
Yes.
Like that circle is Rey and Leia, and kind of everybody else is outside of that, except as we start to discover Finn.
Yes.
Cause you got to remember too, when Rey popped up and was meeting Han Solo and stuff, like pretty much everybody just thought the Force was like a myth or, it's ancient religion that had died, and
Yeah, and Han was the one to say it's all true. It's all true.
So,
everything.
So it's not unrealistic for Poe to just kind of. I mean, Poe saw Kylo fucking hold that blaster bolt in midair.
Yep.
And he looked freaking shocked. So it's not a normal thing for people anymore to see Force users do stuff.
Right. Whereas back before, the Force was being used all the time, and people. So you saw it. I mean, you just saw, you knew the stories were there and stuff like that. And now you just don't hear the stories because there's no Jedi around.
Yeah. So just a cool thing. So we come to Rey. She's floating. I think this is a cool little sequence. She's floating a lot of rocks around her. And what I dig is she's trying to commune with Force ghosts.
Backtracked.
All right. Yeah, I said we skipped ahead.
Yeah,
we're going to go back.
I know. I got confused for a second.
So Rey's floating. She's trying to commune with the Force ghosts, which I think is cool because of the ending of Revenge of the Sith, where Yoda tells Obi-Wan, more training I have for you. Learn to commune with the dead.
Yes.
Right? Talk to loved ones, So Rey's obviously trying to do that here. And trying to figure out how to calm herself and center herself to where she can hear the voices of those who've passed.
Right.
Leia's teaching her that, which means Luke eventually figured that out too on his own, right? And learned to teach it probably to Leia. And they're trying to figure out how to do this here, which means Leia, to some extent, probably is communing with Luke.
Yes.
Which I like. And that's kind of confirmed later when Luke tells her that Leia knew her big secret.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because he says that definitively. Like he knew that she knew, and it was all good. Rey starts running the obstacle course. She's frustrated, and the whole sequence is a nice nod to Luke's training in the original film.
Yeah.
But like amped up, right? You got the blast mask, you got the training droid. Just cool, but also seeing how much further along in her training Rey is compared to where Luke ever was in what we saw.
I think this was a great scene because this is always that debate that people have, like, well, where's any of the training stuff ever happening?
Yeah, how did this progression
Rey,
happen?
Especially Rey.
Yeah.
Where is she getting all this just knowledge from? This was a great way to put that in there.
Yeah. And it ends with Rey being contacted through Force time.
Yep.
With shared visions. So this time Kylo's touching Darth Vader's mask.
Yep.
And he's having his own visions. And in the connection with Rey, she sees his visions. He sees her visions. Their visions become kind of intermixed and mingled. And both of them seem a little off-put and confused when it's done. And at this point, Kylo's searching because he's been told her secret. And he's trying to figure out who she is. And I'm not sure what the relationship is between him sharing his Vader visions and whatnot with her and her sharing her visions with him. But there's obviously that connection. So we get that kind of reminder that the two of them are still able to kind of reach out and link with one another here. The Leia stuff. I really like how they used Leia. I mean, obviously you could tell it's a little forced to create scenes out of stuff they already had.
Correct. Yeah.
But I thought it was incredibly tastefully done the way they managed it. I thought she looked good.
Yeah. I mean, you could tell she wasn't on some of the parts. They definitely took her part out and placed her in with current stuff. So there was some of that. You could tell some, but honestly, here's the thing. All her footage was shot inside the base in Force Awakens, right? The stuff that they used. Yeah.
Because I remember parts of it from the deleted scenes on the Force Awakens special features.
Yeah.
Right. So you can see she's even in completely different outfits. So they digitally changed her clothes.
Wow.
To place her into these scenes.
Yep.
And they're taking her from indoors to outdoors. And I think considering what they had to do to make it work and they didn't want to go the Rogue One route and completely create a CGI character of her to exist throughout this entire movie. They worked with the 6 minutes of footage that they had. I think it's incredibly well done.
Yeah.
And about as tasteful a tribute to Carrie Fisher as you could have, including giving 1 or 2 last moments for Billie Lourd to act with her mother.
Yes.
Yep.
And
Billie had the braid crown,
the Hoth braid,
and stuff. And so, it was happy.
Yeah. So, we'll skip past this stuff. Rey has the Jedi texts,
which we knew.
She's obviously been studying.
Right.
And the reason I say she's obviously been studying is as soon as the name Exegol,
she knew where she heard it from.
She went straight to a book, knew which book it was in, pulled it out.
Yeah. Which means she's read these several times.
Yes.
She's read it all several times. She's tried to figure it all out. And, So she knew right off the bat where to go.
Of a few minutes here, We've seen her physically training, and we've been given enough to realize that she has poured through the Jedi texts.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So in the year or so from The Last Jedi to where this movie takes place, Rey has made the most of that time and has been educating herself in the ways of the Jedi. Very efficient storytelling here.
Yes.
You know, without saying it to you, they just show it to you.
Yep.
Like it's there. So Rey's taking off. She's got her first mission. Essentially, her first mission as a Jedi, being sent off to go find the Sith Wayfinder and whatever. And the boys are going to go with her. They're not going to let her go alone. I don't know if you guys see that scene the way I do. I love focusing on Daisy Ridley's performance in this moment because she's determined to go and just do it, and nobody else is going to go with her. And
yep.
And the boys are like, "Yeah, you're going alone with friends."
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, you're going along, but with friends. Got it.
And the transition of her from feeling alone, and we talked about this with Luke in Return of the Jedi, that I appreciate that scene where he walks out of the party and he really just kind of, the more he takes on the weight of being a Jedi, the more alone he feels.
Yeah, the more secluded he feels.
The more secluded he becomes, the more he separates himself out even from the family he's created.
Yeah, and you can tell with Rey, she's more and more realizing that she's
different.
She's different. She's strong. She's a solo Jedi right now, and she knows that there's a big task that she's got to handle.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she's got the weight of the whole universe on her.
But watching her face change when she realizes these guys are not going to let her leave alone, that's just no longer in the cards for her. She's not alone in this universe. She's got a family who's going to get her back. There's a beautiful moment where you watch Daisy Ridley's performance where she realizes that, and her whole demeanor shifts from where it's been to that point in the film. Because even when she's working with Leia, it's like, she's got to do this. She's got to be better. She's got to,
she's failing.
And even
she's
Leia's
failing
just
this.
kind of like, you're doing fine, relax, But these guys saying, hey, yeah, you're going with us. We're not letting you leave. It totally changes her persona.
Yeah.
And there's that beautiful moment as they're lifting off in the cockpit.
She looks at all of them.
Where all of them come into the cockpit, and she smiles and she looks at Chewie, and Chewie says something.
And she goes, "It is."
And she goes, "It is." And
whether it's like, this is a beautiful moment or whatever,
what I got is Chewie saying, "It's nice that we're all together again."
Yeah, that's what I think it is. Yeah.
And or it's nice to have you back with us. Something like that. I love that moment.
I was thinking, we got the band back together.
Yeah.
Something like that. But yeah, basically.
I love that moment. I love the happiness that it has. And again, this is the thing I said about these sequel trilogies. Even The Last Jedi, which is dark, it's these joyful moments within that I really gravitate and love.
I love that we're seeing arguably the three main characters of this trilogy all together really for the first time.
Yeah.
Because you get Poe,
absolutely,
you get Poe and Finn a lot, and you get Finn and Rey a lot. But Poe and Rey never really
only had the one scene at the end of The Last Jedi where Poe introduces himself to Rey.
Exactly.
So this is really nice to see these three characters together, and they pretty much spend 60% of the film on this adventure together.
Yep.
Then we cut back to a Star Destroyer, and guess what? Julio's been beheaded. And there's it's not blood, but maybe it's blood. Alien blood is kind of clear.
I took it as blood.
Yeah, there's slimy stuff that splatters all over the.
Well,
it's kind of a gruesome shot. I was like, wow.
Ballsy.
We haven't really seen something like that since Owen and Aunt Beru torched. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Right? Good on you, JJ, and that's one of the things that he said that he appreciated about Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi and the way he took risks in that movie. JJ Abrams said that inspired him to take some creative directions in this movie that he wouldn't have otherwise. Rian Johnson reminded him that, it's okay to take some risks and do things differently than what people expect. And I did not expect to see a severed head dropped on a
slammed
on a conference
and
table.
stuff splattered.
Yeah. I mean, wow.
It's real quick.
And it's Mark Hamill's character.
Yeah. I mean, it's real quick.
So Mark Hamill has lost both a hand and a
yeah.
head in Star Wars. Kylo Ren senses Hux is the traitor, maybe?
Yeah, I kind of felt like that the entire time.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Obviously, these two have had a thing for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I noticed on the third viewing is watching Allegiant General Pride watching Hux through that scene.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
From the moment Kylo Ren calls out Hux, General Pride is staring Hux down the whole rest of the scene.
Yep.
He's got his eyes on him, so it's not a surprise when what happens later happens.
Oh, and Kylo's new helmet, right?
Kylo's new helmet, yeah.
With the red
well done
veins.
Which he only wears for like 10 minutes, but I think that as much as anything was because he was back in charge of the Knights of Ren.
Yeah.
And so wearing helmets is kind of their thing. So as long as he was putting up appearances of being in charge of the Knights of Ren, he had to have his helmet on. So.
That is my only, and it's minor, critique about this movie is I would have liked to see the Knights do more. But it's so minor.
I was not surprised that we didn't, though, right?
Well, there's so much going. I mean, there's so much going on.
So
I get it. I mean, I get it. But I can see.
Yeah.
I can see where. I mean, but again, like you said, the minor critique.
Yeah. Now there is a comic book about them, and you get a lot more of their backstory and stuff there, and how their structure all works, their command structure and whatnot. So, we go down to the desert planet with the crew. Festival of the Ancestors is beautiful.
Yep.
I love this scene. I love it more each time I watch it. A small Easter egg. They say 3PO says that it happens every 42 years.
Yep. This
is the 42nd anniversary of Star Wars.
Yep. So there you go.
Little nod to that. So there you go. I love this festival. It's universe building at its best, right? You sense culture, you sense history, all in just a quick session here with these people. You don't need to learn anything more about them. You don't need to know anything about their planet, really. You just see this and you have that sensation of a people with a history and a culture. And they're
happy people.
They're celebrating.
They're happy. They're all very happy.
This reminded me, and maybe this is where Disney comes along. I haven't seen the color and the palette of this since Guardians of the Galaxy or Thor Ragnarok.
So much color in this scene. Yeah.
That it just reminded me of being off-world somewhere.
Yeah.
So that
and what I liked about it too is, again, getting back to that thing about the expanded stuff, the animated series and stuff. This is right in the animated series wheelhouse. You see these kinds of festivities and festivals all throughout the Clone Wars and in Rebels. So it was great to see something like this in the movies.
Yeah. And when we get later on, when we go to Kijimi, that's also very much a very Rebels feel.
Very much, yeah. This also has one of the great 3PO moments.
He was so good in this movie.
Anthony Daniels nailed this movie. He's so good as 3PO in it.
I think that this was a wonderful accumulation of this man's role in 9 films of Star Wars. To give him what he was allowed to have in this film was, for me, was awesome. Because, I mean, he's always been the quirky... I mean, he's the quirky, funny droid and this and that.
And I loved it because he was so important in the original trilogy.
Yeah.
He was less so in the prequels.
Sure.
And then in the previous 2 versions or editions of this sequel, he's just
not barely
kind of
there.
been there, but like he hasn't been important in any way, shape, or form. But the fact that he's in this movie as much as he is, and he's so good, and the writing for 3PO in this film is so good. It was just wonderful, and it's a wonderful send-off for Anthony Daniels, who is, the actor
who's been in all
of them.
Yep.
Right? Carried all the way through. So wonderful, wonderful. And I love this 3PO moment where he's spouting off facts, doing the 3PO thing.
Yeah.
Right? Spouting off facts, and they all just kind of stare and look at him, and he pauses and he looks back. He looks behind him.
Yeah.
Like, what are
my
you
God.
looking at?
Yeah. So
just wonderful. There's a scene in this festival where Rey is seeing like all the little young creatures being taught. I loved the creature character work in this. They were beautiful. Those little kids laughing and stuff. Just again, seeing joy in people.
Yeah, the skin texture and stuff on the characters and stuff was amazing.
Beautiful stuff. So we get FaceTime Rave edition. Why is Rey suddenly in nighttime? FaceTime. Like I don't quite understand that, other than to put her in black where Kylo's in white. And why is Kylo's room all white? Like, that's not a normal look.
That is not exactly. Everyone the entire time after the trailer was like, they've got to be on Camino. They've got to be on somewhere else.
Right? Yeah, no.
But yeah, this is not a Star Destroyer look.
Yeah, it's his trophy room. Oddly enough. But yeah, FaceTime Rave edition, party's going on. Rey's having a conversation.
The only thing I can think of is that she's blocking out any kind of surrounding around her.
Well, I mean, that's been the thing, is they can't really see each other's surroundings.
Yep.
We see their surroundings, but they don't see each other.
But why make it a black?
That gets back to The Last Jedi. Kylo's like, can you see where I am?
Yep.
Yeah, but it makes you wonder, because she's on this mission right now, that maybe like Mike was saying, what if this is the one time now,
just in case
he can see,
and maybe she's trying to shroud it,
and so maybe she's trying to shroud it just in case, just to make sure that this isn't one of those moments.
But we talked about the fact that Kylo was very analytical in The Last Jedi about these Force time conversations, right? And it comes to fruition right here, where he grabs the necklace off of her neck.
Yeah.
Yep.
He tries,
pulls it to him, right? Yep. That then allows him to analyze it and figure out where she is. I loved that idea.
Yes.
Like, Kylo has been trying to source out exactly what these force time visions mean, how they work, what he's capable of doing within them,
Yeah.
And of course he got like a massive lesson in how effective they can be on Crate.
Right.
When Luke did it to him. But I thought this was a very interesting way to have him track her down.
Right.
Very cool. Wookiees stand out in a crowd.
Yeah.
The return of Lando Calrissian. I just loved this introduction. I love that he shot an arrow into a stormtrooper, like dead on in the eye.
I love that C-3PO goes to start to introduce him.
Yeah, and they're like,
and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, no, we know, dude." They're like, "We're good." Everybody knows who he is, like.
And he's still smooth.
Yeah.
He's just still
Leia, my love.
I love that he had joined Luke on an adventure. Like, that's a fun idea, and I would love to see a comic book or something of that whole trip.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's a great storytelling opportunity.
Well, yeah, because I mean, if Han just went off and did his own thing and stuff like that, was doing his own thing, why?
He's off on honeymoon with Leia. Who knows?
Why?
Well, and that's the truth. What happened very quickly after, according to canon, Leia and Han got married on Endor. Right? Like right after.
Yep.
Kind of secretly. Luke knew, Lando knew, but like nobody else in the galaxy knew. But the two of them got married right away. And, with the New Republic and chasing down the remnants of the Empire and whatever, the two of them were off doing political things and whatever. Luke immediately started trying to sort out what it meant to be a Jedi.
Yep.
Lando joined him, apparently.
Yep.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
I love the idea that Lando ran off with Luke. You know, I think that's just a cool idea.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, just loved Lando in this.
Yeah.
I loved his outfit, his first outfit with the like leopard style print on the collar and whatnot.
Yeah, you know,
Still classy.
Still classy, still flashy. Even the helmet he had on was still very similar to helmet he wore before.
Right.
So,
now
it was cool.
You know, he was walking around with a cane, right? You don't get a chance to really see the detail of that cane in the movie, but I saw on the blue carpet coverage for the premiere, they were like taking dives into the archives and showing costumes and whatnot, and they showed the cane. And the cane is long black, right? With a silver top. And the silver top is just a, you know, like half sphere, right? It's not like a handle. It's like a half sphere tip. And when the girl at the archives like held it up, she put it up to the camera and she says, "Look at the profile of this cane. What do you see?" And his cane is Cloud City.
Oh, cool.
Right. And written around the top, around the circle of the top of it, said, Baron Landonis Calrissian, what it says, which was really just, I mean, that's such a cool little like costume thing, you know, like stuff you're probably never going to notice on film, but like as a character, like if I was Billy D. Williams looking at my costume going, "Hey, look, it's Cloud City. I still walk around like being proud," you know, like, you know, like, I mean, that's the sort of thing that like helps an actor just really inhabit their characters when you can give them even history within the things that they carry or wear, you know, super cool, you know, just really, really cool.
Especially when you think about it too, like who knows how long it's been since him and Luke went on this mission, and the fact that he's still on this planet. So either he's, I think he said that Leia contacted him.
Yeah, he said Leia contacted him. So,
so maybe he's.
I imagine he went there
afterwards.
I feel that Leia contacted him, so he went back. He knew where they were going, so that's where he went to be there. Yeah.
Because
and she would know about that previous mission. That
absolutely.
Yeah, she would have known that he went with her.
Okay,
with,
that makes more sense.
So like you could help them, you know. But yeah, just, you know, it's cool. Something came to mind for a second there, and it fleeted away. Oh well.
Fly thought fly.
Yeah, fly thought.
They fly now.
So the boys go to try and hotwire a couple of speeders. And of course, Poe pops the panel open and immediately fires the thing up. And this is where we really start. I mean, we got a little bit with the, how do you know to light speed skip with Finn asking Poe that.
Yeah.
Now Finn's going, how do you know to do these shady
these shady things? Why are you shady?
Why are you so shady? You know, like, I love this whole through line.
I love
with these two
skipping back too after when they land after the light speed jumping or skipping. I love Poe. It's on fire. It's all on fire. It's all on fire.
It's all on fire. It's all on fire.
Yeah, it's just fun. A lot of fun. They go into a high speed chase. This is where we get to see that the First Order has commandeered Mandalorian tech.
Yep.
I mean, not to say that anybody could come up with, you know, jetpacks.
But they realized, we should have jetpacks.
Yeah, you know.
But yeah, that whole comment, so they fly now? They fly now. You know, like.
And I love this whole sequence here. It's got a little bit of pod racing
Yes.
To it, you know?
Yeah, and that's what I felt about it. I was like, oh, this has such a pod racing feel.
Yeah,
so, like,
it's got like a bit of a tribute to pod racing.
Yeah,
within it, which I think is cool.
Yeah, at the same time, those skiffs that they're on remind me of almost like old pirate ships.
Yes,
right?
and that
With
was the other thing I was thinking.
With
Yeah.
masts and everything. And
yeah, with the way the controls were, the levers.
You know, Finn takes one down with just a hook and rope.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then swings it around just like a pirate ship. You know, like it's very cool. Old.
Yeah. Very.
We also get this moment here where BB-8 says to Rey something, and she goes, "Not right now, BB-8," and he just turns around and starts tapping on the thing anyway. Fires off one of those powder rockets, you know, which is like, okay, she told him, you know, now's not the time to fire off powder rockets. It's not we're not celebrating. Only BB-8 knew that it would make a cloud, and the guy goes down. I love that. I love that Rey then says, "Never underestimate a droid," which is what Leia told her. Right?
Yeah.
And I wrote down a Skywalker trait. This is because throughout Star Wars, and we've mentioned it a few times, droids are mistreated left and right. In the Star Wars universe, except Anakin treated his droids with utmost respect.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they're very important to the Skywalkers.
Luke ended up treating his droids with utmost respect.
Yeah, Leia.
You know,
Leia gives her droids the most important information.
Exactly.
All the time.
So, like, across the board, the Skywalkers treat droids better than anybody.
Else. Absolutely.
I love anytime you see Rey meet back up with BB-8. And she checks him over the exact
same way she did on Jakku.
Yep.
Checks
with
his
antenna every single time.
Yep.
It's perfect.
Yeah, it's a beautiful little character thing between the two of them. And Poe with his, like, rubbing his belly thing, you know?
Yeah, like, for me, the checking the antennas, playing with the antennas, it's like rubbing behind the ears of a dog.
Right.
You know, like, I mean, like, that's everybody does it a certain way, you know, with those sorts of things. And yeah, that's kind of, but yeah, she does it. And I noticed it this go around too. I'm like, like, she did it the same way. Yep. Like, every time. I'm like, perfect.
I'm not sure exactly why I wrote this right here. Oh no, I know why I wrote this right here. So they go down in the sinking fields, right?
Yeah. Quicksand, everybody's nightmare.
Which is also something that was in Force Awakens. That's what happened to the TIE fighter. There were sinking fields in the north of Jakku. But 3PO, Poe's calling out names, and 3PO says, "You didn't call my name, sir, but I'm fine," you know? And if you listen to him in the background,
he's talking the whole time.
He's chatterboxing the whole time. And one of the things he says is like, "Is this heaven? I don't, you know, or is this the afterlife? I'm not sure droids are allowed in this."
Yeah.
I mean, it is the funniest bit of bullshit in the background.
Just rambling.
And I wrote, nailed 3PO in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, every time 3PO's in a scene, he's pitch perfect and wonderful. And he's so just like doing his own thing all the time in the background
and rambling a lot
and rambling constantly to himself, which I think is lovely.
Yep.
I mean, if you're at this point, a 50-year-old droid, 60-year-old
that has been through a lot.
Like, you're probably just going to talk to yourself at this point because you know nobody else is listening.
Yeah.
You know? We finally get a flashlight lightsaber joke.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I could see some people not liking, but I loved it.
I loved it because
there were a couple of moments like that in this movie with Finn, Poe, and Rey.
Yeah.
The lightsaber flashlight, and then later when she's doing the
and they're like, does she do that to us?
The mind trick on the troopers. And you're like, should she do that to us?
Yeah.
Kills me.
Yeah.
Every time I watch it kills me.
But the flash, I mean, come on. How many of us before lightsabers?
Oh, come on. Every time you pick up a flashlight, don't tell me you don't go.
Yeah. And you start going, you know, especially before you ever got a lightsaber. I mean, like, you didn't have lightsabers, flashlights, you know, like. Yeah.
Also cool to see Rey using her lightsaber like a flashlight.
As a light
because
source.
It is something that Anakin and Obi-Wan do many times in the Clone Wars cartoons.
Yep.
They find themselves in a dark room and they go, and they hold them up in front of them like torches,
Yeah.
you know? So I was like, there it is. They're doing it in the movies. That's cool. Rey grabs the dagger. And it's dawned on me, she has touch memory ability. So she touches things and then sees the memories of those things.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. She did it with Anakin's lightsaber.
Yep.
She does it here with this dagger. The second she touches these things, she starts to sense the memories of where these things have been, what they've done. Sometimes she gets visions of the future of the thing as well. Just kind of an interesting force ability that she inherently has. Giant snake is injured. Rey heals him. My thought on that is, boy, she really has been studying those Jedi texts, hasn't she?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, because that's not something we'd seen anywhere before, unless you'd watched The Mandalorian. The day before.
Or if you've, played a lot of the video games and all the other that, like, this is one of those abilities that you've always heard about, but you've never seen.
Yeah.
Unless you've done the expanded stuff.
Now the video games are a tricky business because, as far as I know, the only video game that exists as canon, well, there's 2 video games now that exist as canon. So the storyline in Battlefront 2.
Yep.
And Jedi Fallen Order, the one that just came out. And I still haven't played that. My nephews say it's the bomb.
It looks good.
I can't wait to play it. I just haven't had the time. So it's tricky when you say that, force healing exists in the video games and stuff. It's like, yes, but those games aren't canon.
Yep.
Like those are video game abilities, not necessarily true to it. But I'm like, it makes sense if the force is life, essentially.
Yeah.
Right. It's the force that binds all living things. And you're capable of manipulating and using the force, then you should be able to heal somebody.
Yep.
And in fact, that is the core power that Anakin was trying to find.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That is the prequel secret.
That is the
ability to heal.
That was Palpatine's carrot that he dangled.
Now that was the epitome of it, which is, bringing the dead back to life. But I mean, essentially that's what you're talking about.
But that's the concept.
Instilling life force into something.
Right. But I mean, if you can heal, then the next step after should be able to do that is bring someone back.
Right. And of course that plays a lot into the final of this film.
Yeah. We'll
now what's interesting is The Mandalorian by and large has avoided a lot of tie-ins to the larger films, through its run.
Yeah. References here and there.
But it's in its penultimate episode, they showed a force power that was immediately the next day showed on the big film. So and they intentionally put that Mandalorian episode out a couple days early, and everybody's like, why are they releasing it on Wednesday instead of Friday? Well, they wanted to establish force healing as a possibility within the Star Wars universe before the big screen version of it. Interesting. That's a real interesting thing. Like,
Well, I mean, I always took it as that they were doing that just because they didn't want to release both on the same day. Because technically,
Friday was the release date. Yeah. Yes, but no, it's just interesting. It's interesting that they reveal that power on the Mandalorian before they show it in Skywalker.
But not everybody's watching Mandalorian, so
everybody's watching Mandalorian.
Not everybody.
And a lot of people are watching the Mandalorian. But anyway, it's just cool. It's cool to see that tie between the two. And the people who watched Mandalorian, you could hear them in the theater that night going, there it is. Let me see here. So Rey explains to BB-8, how she healed the snake by saying, I transferred a little bit of life energy, the force, from me to him. And then she says to BB-8, you'd have done the same. Right? Which is a cool little throwaway line, except a few moments later, if you're paying attention, that's exactly what BB-8 does for Dio.
Yep.
Dio, by the way, kind of an interesting relatively unimportant character. I mean, he has the information about Exegol, but that could have been attained in any other way. But Dio's voiced by J.J. Abrams.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that was JJ's way of getting himself into the film. So and Sean
loves the little droid.
Loves Dio.
Yeah.
And was like, oh, he can talk.
Normal talk.
Yeah,
Right?
he has normal voice.
Sean was so excited that there was a little droid that could talk normal.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
I have a squeaky wheel.
I love it. So they use a freaking old oil can,
Right?
like total Wizard of Oz style oil can to fix that.
Yeah, I like Dio. I like that BB-8 essentially has a little friend.
Yeah.
You know, the shot of Dio doing circles around him after his wheel's greased.
Yeah.
And you just watch BB-8's head spinning around the ball, watching him. It was like,
I love watching them move around the cities, and like you've never really noticed it before, but like in a lot of steps, there's a ramp. Mm-hmm. There's a small section of ramp and a lot of steps in the Star Wars universe, and then they use that
because it's there for droids.
It's there for droids. You're like, oh my god!
Yeah, because there's always stuff you're like, come on, there's got to be lots of places these.
It's there
droids
for the droids and the handicapped.
Right.
So Rey walks off into the desert to face down Kylo Ren. What she does there is awesome.
Oh my god, it's so cool.
It was seen in the
first
trailers,
trailer.
you know, the bit where she jumps up over the TIE fighter. To see her actually do it and go through the whole, it's beautifully shot. Like that whole sequence is just beautifully shot. The way the dust cloud from the TIE fighter is backlit and you see her disappear into the sand cloud, you know, like just there's so much about this movie that's gorgeous.
Yep.
I mean, just lovely cinematography.
This entire last trilogy, especially like I didn't get to join in for Last Jedi. The cinematography and stuff in Last Jedi was something like nothing you saw before, and it continued into this.
Yeah. There's definitely less like we have to make it look like the original movies, and more of like, let's start incorporating modern cinematography, modern editing. You know, there's a lot more of the kind of newer way of shooting things creeping into the films, which I think is good.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want this stuff to get stale. You got to let things evolve. But again, I can get where some people are upset about that and don't like it.
Now, we skipped over the part that 3PO can read the dagger.
Oh, right. Yeah. 3PO can read the Sith language on the dagger, but can't read it.
Can't say it out
Which
loud.
is the best line from Poe. So the one time we want you to talk, you
can't talk?
You won't?
You won't? He's like, not won't, I can't, you know?
He says, irony.
Yeah. Again, the writing for 3PO. Like, I
wonderful.
mean, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. Rey accidentally blows up the transport, trying to bring the transport down to get Chewie. Kylo tries to push it away, pushes her to her extreme. She's frustrated and she fires the lightning bolts out of her hand, which to this point, we've never seen anybody but a Sith do.
Yep.
Right?
Everyone in the theater jumped at that point.
Yeah.
One, because, most of us are like, Chewie, but then like, dude, she has Force lightning.
Yeah, so you were so torn up. You're like, oh my God, Chewie. Oh my God, she has Force lightning. Wait, hold on.
What does that mean? Because, I mean, even at this point, we haven't been officially told she's a Palpatine.
Mm-hmm.
Just, that the Emperor knew something about her that nobody else did, But if you didn't know at that point, you haven't been paying attention to Star Wars.
Yeah, right?
Because the Force lightning is the Emperor's go-to power.
Yeah.
So, what a cool sequence though, really interesting sequence.
Yeah, because first of all, she's force pulling a ship that's trying to take off.
She's showing how strong she's really gotten in the Force.
And then she's also not only fighting against the ship trying to leave, but Kylo's force pushing the ship away. and she's still able to kind of hold on to it some, so it's like, oh Lord, the power she has is insane.
She's incredibly strong. Yeah. And then the Force lightning, like, whoa.
And then she also has the tantrum.
And again, I like Daisy Ridley's performance here, right? Because you watch her getting frustrated that Kylo's battling against her again, and I think to some degree she's like, I just freaking put you down. Why are you standing up again? Like your TIE fighter just exploded. How are you standing here? Like you can see that frustration playing across her face. Then you see that frustration come out in the Force lightning. But what Daisy Ridley does in her performance, that moment that the
just
thing
the
utter shock at what she just did.
Oh, the way she yells, Chewie.
The terror of what she just did to potentially to Chewbacca. Right. And then the just kind of absolute stunned physical stance and look on her face she has when Finn and Poe are telling her, we gotta go. Like she could barely even run back to the ship. It's like her physicality in that whole sequence is really, really well done.
This entire movie, she's really good at, and I'll talk about it later when we get to the Death Star. But yeah, she's phenomenal in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, really. She's really good in this movie. So the boys they take off. I wrote down 3PO takes in Poe's words about all of this is for nothing if we don't get this information. Really interesting because 3PO is saying, I can't give this to you. I can't give this to you, and he's actually no longer paying attention to the core group. And then Poe starts to say this bit about how important it is that they get this, right? And actually, I think they had just said the bit about going and hacking 3PO's mind, and 3PO's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And he's kind of looking off, almost look like he's looking for an exit. Right. And then Poe says this bit about, if we can't get this, then all that we have done, all we have struggled for is for nothing. At that moment, 3PO turns and starts paying attention.
Yeah.
Right. And it's those exact same words he says later when he makes the final decision himself to allow the procedure to happen.
Yeah.
Really neat little piece of performance. If you're not paying attention to everything in the frame, you might miss out on the fact that 3PO suddenly is paying attention to Poe.
Yeah.
And Poe's leading.
Well, and it's interesting because when he's talking,
Poe's inspiring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is what a great leader does. He inspires people, gets them to tap into things that they wouldn't tap into on their own.
And then a good leader, especially for the good side in Star Wars, the way they've always been able to get people to fight is because not just with inspiration, but helps them with the inspiration to overcome their fears of what's going to happen or what could happen.
Which is a huge part of the storyline in this movie.
And for Poe specifically.
And Rey.
Oh, exactly.
Poe and Rey especially are both facing down massive amounts of doubt and fear about what they're capable of. We get introduced to Zori Bliss when they get down to Kijimi. I love this character. Like the entire character is so cool.
Kijimi's scene and her character is very cool.
Yeah, the lighting, the atmosphere of that whole planet, like the stormtroopers going door to door. It's very
that was very Rebels.
Very World War II. Like
that's what I got from Rebels. That's what I got from the season 1 of Rebels, where Ezra's home planet. I forget what it was.
Lothal.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just something that's going to be completely controlled by the Empire.
Yeah.
Or First Resistance Order at this point. But yeah,
very cool stuff. And Carrie Russell as Zori Bliss. You only ever get to see her eyes for like 2 minutes. Otherwise, she's a helmeted character the whole time. And I loved her. I loved her interplay with Poe. It brought so much more to Poe's character, including
being a spice runner.
Spice Trader.
Finn marveling at Poe Dameron, Spice Runner,
Yeah.
and that whole bit with we can do this all night,
Yeah.
you were a stormtrooper, you were a scavenger.
I could do this all night.
Hilarious.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
funny. But then when they go running off and they're following Zori Bliss out, you just listen to Finn in the background like, Poe Dameron, Spice Runner. Come get your spice.
Yeah.
Who wants some spice?
Yeah.
So funny.
Oh my God.
He's so sassy at Poe about this like shady background thing the whole time. I love it. I love it. Because to me, the way I read that is like, okay, Finn is the friend who came from like the other side of the tracks, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And Poe Dameron was like the great, resistance warrior, best fighter pilot around, like whatever.
That was a kindergarten teacher,
yeah, that was whatever. But now you discover, oh no, you also got a bad side too.
Yeah.
That's like where Finn's coming from. It's like, wait a second, wait, Angel.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting in that whole sequence. And I love that dynamic of the friendship. Like, I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, though, this is one of those moments where Finn is showing a personality that he's realized that he is over this time has now realized that he actually has, so he's got sass and like a little charisma.
And there's people who
not
criticize and say Finn's not doing anything in this movie. But what I see is a lot of character development for Finn.
Completely, and there's not so much. So there, in the first Force Awakens, especially, there was a lot of just questions. He had no idea who he was. He had no name. He had no this. He had not, and it was a lot of just, he's been in the dark for so long.
Yeah.
And Last Jedi,
he goes to Canto Bight with Rose and finds his purpose.
Yes.
Right? The fight
he's still
against bad, you
He's still running for the most part.
At the beginning.
Exactly.
But as that movie progresses, he finds the reasons to continue to fight.
Yep.
Right.
And to step up and fight. Because really, he didn't want to fight. Like, that's why he left the First Order to begin with. Didn't want to do horrible things.
Yeah.
But then he starts to realize there are things worth fighting for. That's what Rose teaches Finn.
Yes.
And anybody who says that whole Canto Bight sequence is pointless is missing the point.
Yeah.
I thought it was the first time I saw it.
Right. But Rose is teaching him some humanity. Because Finn has none.
Finn was never taught any of that sort of stuff. And I think that's where a lot of people
raised to be
forgot.
A stormtrooper. That's it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no personality. There was no this. He couldn't crack jokes and do all that stuff before because he didn't even know how to do those sorts of things. So I love that now he has found some personality.
Well, it dawns on me too, like people complain about the kiss between Rose and Finn, and we talked about it when we reviewed the movie, but watching The Last Jedi and putting together my own feelings now about how Finn's storyline has gone through, like Theresa said, questioning who he is in the first film, finding purpose in The Last Jedi. It dawned on me while we've been sitting here talking about this. Rose kissing Finn is probably the first time he's ever been kissed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what ties you to your human emotions more than that moment of your first kiss? Like, it doesn't have to be a romantic thing. I mean, when you're a little kid, 10 years old, you might kiss your little girlfriend,
right?
Because we explore who we are that way. Physical touch is so important to humanity, right? I mean, just from a scientific standpoint, hugs can increase white blood cell counts and make you healthier. Kissing excites parts of the brain and the nervous system in positive ways. It is an important part of the human experience that Finn had never had.
Right.
And he was willing to like throw everything away in The Last Jedi. And then Rose gives him a kiss after stopping him from doing that. And he's bewildered.
Yep.
He's never experienced that kind of intimacy.
Yep.
And that's something really interesting.
Yeah,
now,
because
thinking about this, going,
that's huge.
What an interesting, different way to look at that kiss.
Yeah.
Is like she wasn't kissing him because she's in love with Finn, right? She was kissing him because that's part of like tying somebody down to feelings like care and,
compassion
and brothers and sisters kiss, parents kiss their kids, like if you're European, you kiss each other on the cheek constantly. Kissing is part of the human experience, part of the physical touch. And it's one of the most intimate touches you can do, in a non-sexual way, I have a whole different view on that kiss in The Last Jedi suddenly, for Finn's development, and Rose's place in helping him discover his humanity.
Yep. That's cool.
Really interesting. Wow. I love that we're podcasting about this stuff. So anyway, we get a couple of cameos here in Kijimi. You pointed out that Kevin Smith's cameo is here. So you see a trench coated guy walking the streets.
Yep.
And we also get John Williams' cameo in this as a bartender as they're heading in to go see Babu Frick. Babu Frick is cool.
Which is this movie's everyone's favorite new character.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Such a small little tiny role for such a small little tiny creature. And I love Babu Frick.
Sean goes, I want one on my shoulder.
Yep. I want one on my shoulder, and I just want one to come around with me everywhere I gotta go.
He's the baby Groot of Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah. Or the baby Yoda.
Yeah, Babu Frick is awesome. So 3PO is kind of put on the line here, right? Like, you've got the thing we need. You can't access it because of your programming. The only way to get there is to wipe your memory, right? To basically do a hard reset. We'll get access to that stuff, and then everything goes away. 3PO states that he doesn't trust R2's memory banks.
Right. Which I
think is hilarious, because R2's memory banks are like the most trustworthy thing in Star Wars. But 3PO always kind of like downplays how good a droid R2 is.
Well, because
because
the interesting thing is this isn't the first time 3PO's memory banks have been
wiped. No, they got wiped in the end of Sith, and he doesn't know that.
Yeah, and he doesn't know that. And he doesn't know that R2 had to have restored his memory. So it's like, wait, what? Like, what's wrong with you?
Now here's the interesting thing about this scene, and I didn't catch it until last night on the third screening. Okay. They're all going round and round about whether this should be done or whatever. Rey walks up to 3PO and says to him, quote,
You know the odds better than any of us. Yep. Do we have a choice? Mad respect for 3PO right there. Yep.
Yeah.
After 9 films of people constantly telling him, don't tell me the odds. Shut up, 3PO.
Yeah. I don't want to know. I said not. I don't tell me the odds. I don't want to know the statistics.
Says, I know you know the odds.
Yep.
Like, it's such a beautiful little moment, and I didn't really catch it until last night.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it on the first time.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's perfect.
I was like blown away last night when I realized that. I was like, oh my God, that's so like wonderful.
Yeah.
And that's when 3PO kind of looks at her and just like, you can, and Anthony Daniels,
but again,
can speak volumes behind that shocked looking mask.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I mean, we've talked over and over again about acting behind masks in the Star Wars universe. Man, there is so much emotion in what Anthony Daniels does in 3PO. I am consistently blown away by how much he can convey with the exact same face all the time.
All the time.
Just a complete lesson in physical acting, and because a lot of
in the right moment.
Yeah.
And like
the way,
and the tilts and the
tilt of the head
and the jerks
move,
and whatever.
Like, he understands every angle of that character.
A physical acting is, but
so
what I loved in that though, cause I caught it the first time too, is it again with Leia telling Rey,
never underestimate a droid.
You know, like, learn from this because I think they'll surprise you, you know?
Yep. So in 2 instances, Rey,
give them the respect because they'll surprise you. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially, these 3 droids.
Especially these particular droids. Yeah.
These droids that have circled the Skywalker camp for a while. They all have something special about them, Yeah, and then of course 3PO then reiterates what Poe said earlier and steps in. But just before Babu Frick wipes him, he's like, wait, I have no one more idea. Which is perfect.
So we got back after the movie and everyone, Theresa, she watches the first trailer, but that's it. So I'm like, okay, you immediately have to watch.
Yeah, after we watched the first.
I think it was the third trailer. And that's the one where
the final trailer.
Yeah. Where
that's the one where all you guys watched and were so mad at me that you couldn't talk about the trailer.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, that's 3PO.
Taking
and Mike's like, can you please watch this trailer and understand why we were all crying at a trailer? And I'm like, okay.
Grown men crying at trailers.
Fair enough. But I mean, what a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
Beautiful moment.
Lovely moment. And not, and some people would say cheapened by the fact that he gets his memory back later. I argue that it's not cheapened by that at all, because in 3PO's mind, that wasn't going to happen. He doesn't trust R2's memory banks.
Yeah,
to restore him. Like,
there was no guarantee.
To him, it was absolutely like, I am giving this up for the greater good.
Yeah.
Beautiful moment.
Yep.
Absolutely beautiful moment. And such a lovely moment for Anthony Daniels.
Yeah.
And he said several times leading up to this movie how happy he was with the arc that 3PO had in this film and the story they got to tell with him here. And I can see why. It's such a beautiful run with 3PO in this film. Zori and Poe are on top of the building watching the First Order doing their stuff. Again, I love the Zori Poe stuff. I think there's a great story there. There's a lot of back history that's conveyed very quickly between these two actors.
They clearly had some romance or
I would love to see a Disney Plus series about the two of them. And I
it's been mulling over.
It's a backdoor pilot. That's what I see. It's a backdoor pilot. And Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy have both said that in no way, shape, or form do they feel like they're done with these sequel trilogy characters.
Right.
They're done with the Skywalker saga. That's not to say they're done with these characters that they've created in this universe. I would love to see Poe Dameron as a Spice Runner. I think that'd be just a really cool series. Even if it's only a single 8-episode series, just to see Kerry Russell and Oscar Isaacs play these characters and see that backstory, I think would be really fun.
Yeah.
And
because the playful banter is
the banter's good. Like the little, can I kiss you?
Yeah. Can I kiss you?
Get out of here. You know, and then later he's like, she's like, no, it's beautiful. It's subtle, it's just lovely. The 3PO reset is hilarious when he introduces himself.
Oh, hello, I'm C-3PO. Hello, I'm Babu Frick.
I'm Babu Frick. And then later when he's like, Babu Frick, he's one of my oldest friends.
Yeah.
So funny.
Oh, this is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So wonderful. It's just, the humor is great and it's perfect Star Wars humor. Just a lot of fun. We also get the "Does she do that to us?" scene shortly after that, where Rey's doing the Force on the stormtroopers. I also have a note here. I said, "Hey, Chewie can run."
Yeah.
One of the interesting things with what's his name, Juno. I have a hard time with his name. The new guy playing.
Yeah, Chewbacca. I think it's Juno something. Yeah.
He's super tall. He's very athletic, very strong. And so for the first time, really, we're getting to see Chewbacca powerful and running and, right alongside the guy.
Everybody else.
For sustained periods of time, not for 10 feet,
I love that shot as the three of them are running and the camera's pulling back.
Yeah.
Or the shiny Star Destroyer, floors, which you always see. And then, but just bodies are falling all over the place. It's just awesome.
Yeah. Really cool scene. Then we get FaceTime Trophy Room Edition, which I thought was super cool, the way they edited that, with the camera kind of moving around, and as it crossed behind it, one or the other of them, it would change the background to one or the other.
Yeah.
So you got that sensation of the two of them in different places.
Right. But they weren't always in their background. They were in the other's background and stuff like that. Yeah. So it was very cool.
So well edited. Yeah. And again, this whole conversation about a different style of editing, like these newer techniques, these newer ways of making things happen. Just fantastic. That whole sequence. And then the kind of expansion on the necklace bit, with the berries.
Later, Vader's helmet.
So she knows where he is now, right? And then they smash Vader's helmet, which I thought was a really cool moment. Because it's kind of the epitome of the final conversation with Rian Johnson about Kylo Ren saying, the past must die, except he won't ever let go of Vader's helmet. Well, now it's done, right? Smash the temple, down the helmet goes. Now he knows where she is. And I like that they have this little force time lightsaber tool.
Yeah, that's cool.
And she even looks a little shocked.
Yeah.
That they're actually making contact.
Yeah, well, because when they first made contact, she's totally shocked.
Yeah, which I thought was neat.
But I also think it was also him again, really testing some more as to what can happen back and forth.
Right.
So.
But it's really, I think for her, she had the necklace pulled and now she's got the lightsaber clashing. I think now it's solidified in her mind, wow, we can do more than just talk to each other here.
Yeah.
Because they never quite got to touching their hands in The Last Jedi.
Right.
They were starting to, but then they never quite got that far. So, he doesn't tell her everything here. He's like, I'm coming up.
Yeah.
He knows everything he needs to know at this point about her. And he's like, I want to tell you in person.
Yeah. We're not going to do this over text.
Force time's not good enough.
Yeah. This is an in-person conversation we need to have right now.
Hux the Traitor. Any thoughts on Hux the Traitor? Did you see that coming?
Oh, yeah.
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 I love how he's just gleefully, okay, I'm the spy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm keeping it in.
But I also love that the reason
it's just because he hates Kylo Ren.
It's just because he hates Kylo Ren.
My enemy is my friend. He's
he's I don't
care if you win.
I just care that Kylo Ren loses. I mean, literally, that's all he cares about is that the bully gets beaten up.
Yep. Yeah.
That's all he wants. He wants the bully to be beaten up because he can't win if the bully's around. That's just kind of how it is.
I knew it, Finn. No, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
But I think this gets back to some of that discussion about, Aftermath, the novels. Hux was a child in the Empire. His father was a general and was the key general that took all these children and the remnants of the Empire into the unknown regions to create the First Order.
Right.
Hux was essentially born and raised to be the leader of the First Order. Yep. And then somehow Ben Solo becomes Kylo Ren
and takes it all away.
And you see that in The Force Awakens, the kind of power dynamic between the two of them. And this is something they played with, I think, more effectively here than they ever did with the Vader stories in the past, although they did it in the novels quite a bit. Vader's never part of the military.
Yep.
Nope.
Right? Kylo Ren's not part of the military, but he leads the military.
Yeah.
Right?
He's an outsider that comes in.
There's always this weird power dynamic where the Force users are in charge of shit without, any legitimate claim to being leaders of the military. And especially for Hux, I mean, can you imagine being raised for, 25, 30 years to lead the armies to take over the galaxy, and right as you're about to do that, some snot-nosed kid,
with those temper tantrums,
runs away from his
hip.
parents and wants to take vengeance on his parents, is suddenly put in charge of you.
Yep.
It's an interesting storyline. Not necessarily effectively told all the way through, unless you're reading the novels and kind of understand some of the backstory, like the aftermath bit. But it is an interesting power dynamic, and it comes to fruition here with Hux saying, I don't care about any of this anymore. I just want to see Kylo Ren lose. And staying very true to what he did in The Last Jedi, where he contemplated killing Kylo Ren before Kylo Ren woke up, that power dynamic, stays. The dyad,
this is interesting.
2 grandchildren of powerful lineage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I had asked, I said, okay, I clearly need to look into what dyad actually is.
Like the dictionary definition of a dyad?
Yeah.
Let me look that up. You guys talk amongst yourselves.
Well, I'm like, okay, so you have a triad, right? Which is your 3 tiers of a pyramid. And it's like the Holy Trinity, right? Dyad is your top 2. So I didn't catch exactly what Kylo says here. But you obviously have your Skywalker lineage and your Palpatine lineage.
Yeah.
So the 2 most.
So here's what Wikipedia says. Dyad. It's a sociology term. In sociology, a dyad, from the Greek dyas, or pair, is a group of 2 people, the smallest possible social group. As an adjective, dyadic describes their interaction. The pair of individuals in a dyad can be linked via romantic interest, family relation, interests, work, partners in crime, and so on. The relation can be based on equality, but may be based on an asymmetrical or hierarchical relationship. Master-servant.
Yep.
The strength of the relationship is evaluated on the basis of time the individuals spend together, as well as on the emotional intensity of their relationship. A dyad can be unstable because both persons must cooperate to make it work. If one of the 2 fails to complete their duties, the group would fall apart. So
really, Star Wars is full of dyads.
Yeah.
Because with the Sith, there's always 2. And they say that, right? And even at the Jedi, you've got a master
and apprentice.
And an apprentice.
Well, and you also have the dyad of the opposing. So you have
yin and yang.
Yin and yang.
Yeah. And the balance of the Force.
Yeah, exactly. So light and dark.
Yeah.
There's the light and the dark, so essentially it's kind of what all of Star Wars is, the meat and potatoes of it, basically. But the 2 of them, their dyad.
They share a very special relationship because neither one's a full Sith, neither one's a full Jedi necessarily.
Right.
Right.
But they're both very powerful.
They're both from very powerful lineages.
Yep.
Which, technically speaking, if you want to get into it, you can argue that the Skywalker lineage is also a Palpatine lineage.
Because of he changing the midichlorians and Shmi.
Yeah.
Palpatine.
So that Skywalker power, that powerful Skywalker blood was created by Palpatine.
Yep.
Right? So technically speaking, Kylo Ren and Rey are products of the same person.
Right.
Right? Through 2 generations. So, really interesting. Yeah, the grandchildren of the Force is the way I kind of.
Yeah, but I don't see how Palpatine manipulating the midichlorian count and stuff like that in Shmi would cause the Skywalker lineage to be part of the Palpatine lineage.
What I'm saying is he created Anakin. So the Skywalker blood as it wasn't powerful like that until Palpatine manipulated it. So, and this is an interesting thing because you get back to The Last Jedi, Luke is talking about his own hubris about the powerful Skywalker blood, like JJ really didn't throw away ideas from The Last Jedi. He just expanded on them, So the idea of the dyad is introduced here. It's also right at the same time that General Hux gets whacked by Allegiant General Pride, which apparently didn't surprise you at all.
No.
I was surprised at just kind of like how quickly Hux was just disposed of.
That
just kind of poof, done.
That jogged me at that moment, but I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. But it does set up Allegiant General Pride as being really smart and ruthless. And then when he has this conversation with the Emperor
later, the loyalty. He's been there since the Empire.
Yeah.
He is one of, even more so than Hux growing up as one, like he's one of the ones that went with the remnant, out to the outer regions.
Well, I think this is always a interesting thing that a lot of people don't always think about on the politics side of Star Wars, where everyone's always rooting for the resistance and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, you have this whole communities and planets of people that choose and actually, like, we finally have order in the galaxy.
Yep.
So
they explore a lot of that in the Clone Wars cartoons.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of episodes that are about negotiations and the Trade Federation and whatnot come down and they pitch their side of it, and the Jedi come down, pitch their side of it. And, planets are left to choose which side they want to be on.
Yeah. And you get this idea too from, obviously, when they talk about it briefly in The Mandalorian, when the New Republic comes back, and they kind of just glance over it, like, okay, yeah, sure.
They're on the outer worlds, which we're always kind of like that. Even during the Empire, the outer worlds kind of do their own thing,
right?
Because it's the Old West,
But it's always interesting to set up a brand new government, right? It never just happens overnight.
No, it doesn't. It takes time, and
so
it's usually pretty messy.
Yep. So it's you have all these people that just love the order that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So of course they're going to be loyal, and then the resistance, sure, they're just trying to disrupt. And look, 5 year or 30 years after the Republic or the Empire falls, you still don't have a governing body that's really respected yet.
True. Yeah, very true.
Just causes war.
So here's my note. Falcon has a rough go of it in this film, but it keeps flying. The shot of the Falcon, like, slammed into the ground and slid to a stop. I was like, I wondered if they were going to let it fly again. I was like, is this the end of the Falcon? Like,
this thing takes so much of a beating.
Right? I mean, it always has, like, in the history of Star Wars, but, like, they really put it through it's on fire.
It's all on fire.
Crashed. Like they just really take a pounding in this one. But it's fun. So this leads to Rey figuring out that the dagger, because one of the last things that 3PO says before he gets completely wiped is, what is it? This blade is the only way, or I can't remember the exact
I forget.
But essentially the last clue is that the blade
is the key,
right? Yep. And she figures out that if she holds it up, right, she can match it up to the Death Star. So I wrote in my notes, find the Wayfinder, the Goonies way.
Right.
If I match this up. Though I don't know if that's a bit of a hat to the Goonies or not, because JJ's a huge 80s film fan, right? Like, especially Spielberg related 80s films. Right. So anyway, this is also where we get introduced to what was her name? Jana?
I think so.
Yeah, so Finn and Jannah have their conversation about the First Order conscription of kids, which again is a huge part of the storyline in Aftermath, and is why all these stormtroopers in the First Order only have number designations and not real names, because they were taken as children to become stormtroopers. The eventual mutiny of Jannah and her troop, Finn's mutiny, we really start to, in this conversation with Finn, like we're talking about Finn's development over the course of these 3 films too, right? He's also been front and center for Rey's journey, right? And he's been watching her grow in the Force. And I think on his own, also coming to an understanding of his own relationship with the Force, which is, I think, really neat. And he's come to his own conclusions that his ability to overcome all his stormtrooper training and stand out and stand up for himself was that the Force guided him to do it.
I think he's come to that conclusion over conversations with Leia.
I think that's part of it too. But I love his conversation with Jannah, where she's trying to explain what happened. He goes, "It's a feeling," right? She goes, "That's right. It's a feeling. It was a feeling, you know?" He goes, "It's the Force." And he explains the Force to her. I love this sequence because it is the growth and the maturation of Finn from bewildered stormtrooper to,
that's not how the Force works,
right? To Force sensitive believer.
Yeah.
Right. He believes in something now. Right. And we see over and over again in this movie that he is attuned to the Force now.
That you got it at the very end of your first time watching, but the second time you really get those clues in on, he can feel it the entire time.
Yep. Now, the other question then is, are all of the mutinous troopers Force sensitive like him?
I always kind of thought that.
And is that another potential spin-off story? Finn and his trooper pals, right?
Maybe.
Exploring the Force together. Could be interesting.
So here's something I always thought interesting too, is the Force is in every creature. Whether you believe in it or not, but it's around you, it binds you. So is it just like any other spiritual thing, where if you just pay attention and are a little more open to it and attuned to it, you can learn it? Any Joe can learn the Force. Sure, certainly.
Well, I think that's where Rian Johnson was trying to take the storyline for sure.
Right.
With The Last Jedi, was that idea that, you know, there's anybody can rise up and become attuned to the Force. You don't have to be a Skywalker.
Right.
You know,
obviously, if you have it more, the more midichlorians, the more in your blood, sure, it's an advantage. And obviously, you have all these people, and potentially, you know, if Jannah ends up being Lando's girl, that they're all from powerful, not necessarily Force, but just powerful people in this universe.
We also get this conversation between Poe and Finn, because Rey runs off and does her thing, and when Poe and Finn are fighting, and Finn says to Poe at one point, "You have no idea what she's fighting." Right. And Poe responds with, "Oh, and you do?" And Finn goes, "I do. And so does Leia." Right. Getting to your point, Theresa, that you think Finn's been chatting with Leia a bit.
Yeah. So I think Finn has, I mean, obviously would be chatting with Leia, and I think they've come to the conclusion together that Finn's, you know, in tune with the Force and stuff like that. I also feel that Leia, because Leia knows the direction of Rey, where and what is supposed to happen, and how this is all sort of supposed to work out, and has a good idea. I feel that she has asked Finn to
keep an eye
on her and try to help her not fall too far to the emotions of the dark side and whatnot, and try to help keep her balanced, because so long as she's got the love of her friendships to keep her grounded, she won't go.
Because Finn really is trying through this whole movie to keep her engaged and talking to him and not holding things in, and, you know.
Right. Because when all that stuff, and that's how all, you know, that's how this stuff works, you know, in the Star Wars galaxies for this, getting Jedi or people to come to the dark side has a lot to do with internalizing and torment internally and then just exploding.
Yeah.
So the more and more, like Anakin did it too, the more and more he tried to just keep it all within, and then he just explodes.
Yeah.
And then doesn't know how to come back. Ben, same thing, then just explodes and now doesn't know how to come back, you know? So,
yeah.
Yeah. So the, yeah, I feel that was Finn's duties from Leia.
Well, and Leia, back to when the training happens, and after the vision that she has is of her and the Sith and the throne, Leia is basically like, just talk to me, and Rey just like, oh, I'm tired, I'm just, and then later on, Finn's the same way, just talk to me, just.
Yeah, he's very much echoing
what she says.
What Leia was
saying. There is a key thing that Leia says when she gives her Rey a hug before she leaves. Never be afraid of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Which echoes to now knowing that they all knew.
Leia knew, Luke knew. Now, what I've come to in my own conclusion on all this is, and this is skipping ahead just a little bit, but Luke tells Rey that Leia saw at the end of her training, that the end of her path as a Jedi would be the death of her son, right?
Yep.
And another would pick up her lightsaber to finish
the fight,
right? So Leia knew that Rey was coming.
Yep.
Whether she knew she was a Palpatine at that point, I don't know. But certainly Leia knew she wouldn't be there to the very end with Rey.
Yep.
Right? So if you're a responsible
parent
or a responsible teacher,
mentor,
you're not going to leave your student without somebody to look out for them, you know? And I really feel like if Leia sensed that Finn was at all force sensitive, and he obviously has a great and deep affection for Rey, right? He spent all of The Last Jedi, like, trying to make things safe for Rey, really. You know, that was his primary guiding force through that movie. I really feel like Leia would have told him, you know, look, she's going to need you, and this is why.
I completely agree. Yeah.
Because when Rey says to him about the throne, I saw, he goes, Kylo Ren, she says, and me. He's not really surprised by it.
No.
Right? Like like you watch him, he's not surprised. It's not a shock to him to hear that. He's concerned, obviously.
Yep.
But I don't, like, you should, like, if I was directing that scene, like, I would have directed him to be like, oh my God, you know, like, why would you see that? You know, but he doesn't respond that way at all. It's very much just like, yeah.
And and how do you feel about that? Like, and
yeah, you know,
do you feel like that's where you should go? Do we need to stay here? You know, like,
he definitely feels like he knows more about everything than anybody else.
Yep.
And piecing together all the pieces after having seen the whole movie a couple of times, the idea that Leia knew she was a Palpatine already, knew she wouldn't join her all the way to the end of the fight, I absolutely feel like she would have told Finn, you've got to keep an eye on Rey. she's in a dangerous place.
Yep.
And she's going to need her friends to truly be there for her. You know? So, you know, I think Finn's an incredibly interesting character over the course of these 3 movies.
Yep.
Dark Ray. I thought that was a really cool sequence.
Yep.
Did you catch the last little bit? So they're battling. Dark Ray's got the like switchblade, double blade lightsaber, right? Did you catch the last bit of that when Ray hits her and Dark Ray closes it up and pinches her lightsaber in place? I was like, that's cool. You know? But I like the Dark Ray bit, and I like that it is her saying, taking Leia's message of don't be afraid of who you are and twisting it and making it dark, you know, dark and evil, which gets back to all our discussions about the dark side. Is it takes your fears and twists it and plays it against you to try and convince you that that's the path you have to be on.
Yep.
Kylo Ren says the dark side is in our nature to Rey. Now, we've talked off and on over the course of the deal about the idea of gray Jedi who embrace both light and dark within themselves. There were a lot of, you know, super fans who were hoping that there'd be more of a gray Jedi take on the Jedi in this trilogy. I really think that it's there because essentially that is what Ben Solo and Rey are.
Right.
Yeah.
Is they're gray Jedi. They're Jedi who do feel both sides of it. You know, but it's how they choose to act on those two feelings, you know? And I think it gets back to that. Obi-Wan says to Anakin in Revenge of the Sith, only the Sith deal in absolutes. Well, except the Jedi deal in absolutes all the time.
Right.
Right. No emotional connection, you know, stoicism at its extreme, you know, like they are absolutes just on the other side. And since that's their dogma, they think it's okay. Right. But when you get to The Last Jedi and Luke's teaching Rey what the Force is, he walks her through the fact that it is about light, but it is about darkness. It's both. The Force is not conditioned to be one or the other. It's all of it.
Yep.
Life is birth and death, light and dark, right? And really Ben Solo and Rey are the epitome of two characters who exhibit both. Rey gets angry and frustrated, and
when Kylo has the holocron, she is pissed.
Yeah,
she's
furious. You know, and and when you watch Ben, you know, thinking about his mom, thinking about his dad, you know, he's obviously still got light side to him. And even in The Force Awakens, he talks about, I feel the light side pulling me, you know, when he's talking to the Darth Vader mask, you know, he acknowledges that he has both within him, you know, and he's struggling with the choice of which one to be, you know, and I think, somebody made a point. Names in Star Wars are always very important, especially of primary characters, right? Darth Vader, Dark Father, right? Darth Sidious, Insidious, right? Darth Tyrannus, tyrannical. You know, these names mean stuff. Well, what does Rey mean? It's one letter off from gray. Right? It's one letter off from gray. That can't be a coincidence. And it's R-E-Y, not R-A-Y, right? Which further puts it closer to the color as opposed to the light beam, right? Just little things, you know, little things like that. In Han Solo, he's the guy who runs around by himself.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Ben Solo becomes the Solo dark side guy, So, but his name's Ben, named after Obi-Wan. So he's got light in him too. It's like, just interesting little things like that. But I like the whole idea that Kylo's essentially, Ben is saying, don't deny the fact that you have dark in you.
Right.
Because denying it, if you get into psychology, if you deny that you feel stuff, that stuff wells up and blows up, right? It's good to acknowledge.
Again, if you bottle it all up and don't talk about it.
Yeah.
One, you can't get the help or the guidance maybe that can help you deal with it.
Yeah. Rey and Kylo start battling on the start of this battle. Another really subtle thing. She starts swinging at him real hard.
His hands are behind his back.
He doesn't even use his lightsaber.
No, I know.
He's pulling a Luke Skywalker on her at this point. Like, I'm not going to fight you.
Yep.
But his hands are behind his back. He's cool. He's calm. He's just kind of leaning back, leaning sideways.
Dodge. And he even does the kind of slide move that Luke did underneath his blade, there's little tributes there to the Luke Skywalker moment at the end of The Last Jedi. Like, it's cool.
Yep.
And then finally he's like, well, she's not going to stop. Then they go into a full fight, but he still runs away.
But even then, if you watch the actual lightsaber battle, for the 90% of it, he's all doing defensive moves.
Yep.
And not doing any sort of attacking moves really so much.
I love this battle. Then goes back to her acting we talked about earlier. She gets emotionally and physically tired.
Yeah.
And you see it. And he could take her down at any moment, but he doesn't.
No, because that's not his goal.
No, absolutely not.
Right. But but there are definite moments where he shows that he is stronger. So like when they do one of the jumps, so she jumps
and
she
he
lands,
just walks through the water.
And he jumps, but he jumps way further than her, and and she's just like, she's so worn out and so tired, and it's just like,
I love it when she shakes her hand at one point when she's trying to, she's just bare survival mode, but it's just the anger that is just fueling her through this entire thing. But eventually it tires out until Leia comes in, and this is where she realizes what Leia has to do. And basically sacrifice herself.
How do you feel about the Leia sacrifice at this point?
Well, okay, so up to this point we had all talked like, okay, so if Ben is coming back, it has to be a really good sacrifice in order for this to happen. We'll get to that a little later. But it was a very interesting choice that they did. One is just kind of a distraction to get his attention, and one last mother-son
moment. We talked about how strong that bond still was in The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
When he didn't fire on her.
Yep, exactly.
Because he keeps saying, I can't go back to my mom.
Yep.
I can't go back there. Like he knows he's done something that's unforgivable. And yet Leia reaches out to him again, which I think was a shock for him.
Yep.
I think it was a shock, but I also feel that the feeling she sent, I don't think she sent it in words other than Ben was all but I think she sent a feeling of
flooded him with love.
But I also was like, don't. Because he had Rey. He really could have, which is why he dropped the saber.
Yeah.
Because I feel she was like, don't. Just
don't do this again.
Don't do this again. Don't do this. You won't be able to come back from and I think that was what he got flooded with.
Yeah.
And then Rey straight up murders him.
Yeah. With his sword.
I was surprised that she put the lightsaber through him. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought somehow she'd see the communication between him and Leia. And
no, but she's so clouded.
But she's clouded.
So clouded.
She's so angry at this point. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
And then
she slams him.
She feels
and then she
Leia.
feels Leia pass. And it's like, that's the jolting moment for her. Like, oh my God.
What did I just do?
Like,
but then it also, because she saw he got distracted with something.
Yep.
Because he turned away.
Yeah, he totally turned away and dropped his lightsaber. Yeah.
She's so clouded with what's going on. She's not sensing what's happening right now in the Force. So she's not catching it because she's right now just so clouded that she grabs the saber and stabs. And until she has that release of what she was so worked up about,
now she feels it.
She feels Leia's passing, and then went, oh God, like, oh my God.
That's why he stopped.
I didn't fairly win. I didn't.
Yeah. But he's also Leia's son.
Yeah.
And I don't think, as angry as she is at Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
She never wanted to kill him.
No.
Like, it was never her goal. Right. She always wanted to try and turn him back.
Yeah.
Well, they said that, he was always curious earlier about, why didn't you take my hand earlier?
Mm-hmm.
And we find out later it's because if you had been Ben Solo, I would have.
Yeah. Yeah. And he had it in his head so heavy that nobody would accept him as Ben Solo anymore.
Right.
Right. For Leia to extend out and potentially flood him with love and forgiveness in that moment and a plead maybe to not do this again.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rey to do the healing.
Yep.
Right.
But see, I think Rey caught when she was finally clear enough. I think Rey sensed it. And I think she caught what Leia flooded Kylo with.
I don't think so. I don't think she felt any of that. Because I think it was just super clouded at that point. I think at that point she's grief and regret.
Yep.
And she can't save Leia.
Right.
She's got no ability to save Leia, but she can still try to save Ben. Right.
Right.
Which I think at that point for her was the only way she could honor Leia was to try and save Leia's son.
Right.
And I mean, what greater gift can you give somebody than some of your life? Right. Which is what she had to do. And I can only imagine that there'd be some sort of emotional feeling to that too. Right. And Ben's dying. Like, you know, he's sitting there, he's looking at her like, I'm freaking dying. Like, you've run me through. But he gets healed and he doesn't
know what to do with himself.
Know what to do with that. You know, he is so dumbfounded by the fact that she had him, but she's like, she heals him. And then she says, I would have taken your hand, but I would have taken Ben's hand.
Yep.
You know, like that tells you everything. Like, you know, you still have that choice of being Ben Solo or being Kylo Ren, you know?
Yeah.
And she leaves him.
I love the subtle heal that fixes his scar.
Yeah. His facial scar heals too, right?
That's
all remnants
awesome.
of Kylo Ren are removed in this process. Right.
Which then comes to the next scene,
which is that whole thing of like, you can heal deep scars.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like
no scars, no emotional scars really permanent.
And then, we also see Chewbacca finding out about Leia.
Yeah.
Here. And
yeah, so I like this moment, because you see Finn and Poe finding out and they'll look at each other and then they immediately turn to Chewie and go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You know, like they knew it was, I mean, they're sad. Absolutely. But I love that that's how they bring the attention to somebody who's there who
and I think
would be more affected.
Jonas, whatever his name, I can never pronounce his name. I think he played that part
full collapse
pitch perfectly.
Yeah.
And beating the ground.
Yeah.
Was.
Yeah. You could see it in his eyes. You could see,
Because I mean, for Chewie, I mean, that is it.
That's the last. Yep.
His greatest friendships of his life are now all gone.
Yeah. The only one left is Lando.
And you could argue about how much of a friend Chewie and Lando really were, you know. But his absolute family, the ones he considers his family were Han and Leia and Luke.
Yeah.
You know, and they're all gone now. You know, like that's it. Like for him, it's all they've all left him.
Yeah.
It was heartbreaking. Then we get Ben seeing Han Solo.
Yeah. I bawled.
I think that's just a lovely scene.
I bawled.
And again, I said it about Harrison Ford coming back for The Force Awakens, and I'll say it for him coming back for this. God bless him for coming back and playing a character he said he'd never play
He would never do again.
And for really giving it heart. I love Han Solo in this scene. I love the tenderness. We've come to joke around about how gruff and angry and bitter Harrison Ford just seems to be all the time.
The tender love. But
Han Solo was always tender with the group.
Yeah.
He was always tender with his group. And Harrison Ford tapped back into the things that made Han Solo special.
Yep.
And God bless him for coming back and doing that and giving us this beautiful closure to the Han Solo story with his kid.
Which was so
lovely.
Wonderful. I love that it was
a mirror to Force Awakens.
Like a reenactment. But, you know, like,
it's mirror. An absolute mirror to the Force Awakens moment. Yeah.
But portrayed just enough different to make the moment be what this moment is, you know? So it was so good, you know? So it wasn't him just completely acting the same way he did it in Force, you know? But there was a tenderness to it to guide his son, you know?
It's the mirror, but at the same time it's flipped because he's on the light side now.
Yeah.
Conflicted with dark versus the dark conflicted with the light.
Yeah. And the bit, you know, your son is dead. No, my son's alive. Kylo Ren is dead.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, like it's a beautiful moment. And if you think of this as it is Ben Solo just comprehending what's possible for himself within his own mind, it's not actually the ghost of Han Solo. Like that's a cool storyline. And you know, for him to see that for himself.
Yeah.
And it's followed up by Dad.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
For Han Solo's final words in the Star Wars story to be, I know, is the greatest send off to that character you could give him.
One, those were his words. Yep. I mean, he came up with that.
Yeah.
And the fact that Yeah.
And the way he delivered that line. I mean, Harrison Ford in this bit, like, I was like, I wish you were my dad. You know, he's, it's everything you wanted Han Solo to be.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, and it was nice to get that final moment with him. And
well, like in
Adam
Force
Driver,
Awakens, I feel Force Awakens, Han Solo got the death that he
wanted.
Harrison Ford.
That's the death Harrison Ford always wanted.
That's what he always wanted.
And this is the send off that the fans wanted.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
But I think Harrison I think the way it was done would have been the only way Harrison
and
would
it's
be
also
to do
one
it.
of the things he said why he wanted his character to have that kind of death to begin with was he always felt like there wasn't anything significant for his character to do.
Yeah.
Right? He wasn't a Jedi. He wasn't Leia. You know, he was just the lovable rogue, whatever, right? This is an incredibly important moment in the story of Ben Solo.
Right. Because if he doesn't, if Han doesn't get through to his kid, it's all going to go the wrong way.
And if that moment hadn't happened on the walk in The Force Awakens and he didn't make that effort to reach out to his son and show him tenderness,
his memory wouldn't be
his
there.
Memory wouldn't be there that even his dad was willing to forgive everything he'd done.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a beautiful character moment and really wonderfully played.
Bald.
And Adam Driver is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
In this scene.
Oh God. Yeah.
And I have to confess, when I first saw The Force Awakens, the one person I wasn't really sold on was Adam Driver.
Yep. Me too.
Which is so funny because I was actually.
I thought he was weird looking. I thought,
I literally said the exact same thing.
Yeah. We had this discussion last night, and he goes, he was weird looking. Is this? And I'm like,
I just didn't care.
He's just a goofy looking dude.
Yeah.
And I was like,
but he's
like,
grown on
it.
me over these movies, and he really, all 4 of those new characters, the actors who play them in this film, really brought everything they had, it felt like, to their performances. Just lovely. Sith Fleet, now with more red accents. Sith Fleet, same as the old fleet, just with red.
Yeah. Same ships, same. Yeah.
Although with miniaturized Death Star tech and the ability to blow up another planet.
I love Poe. Of course, they all have Death Star. Classic Empire.
Yeah. Right.
Nice that we're not doing another Death Star, though, right? Like,
right.
At least we didn't go there for a 4th time.
Yeah.
Like,
of course they do. Now they just realized that they didn't need to power up a whole, star. They could just attach big guns to the bottom of the ships.
Right. So Poe finds out about Kijimi. Of course, he's worried about Zori. He has the lovely moment talking to Leia's body, which I thought was beautifully played by Oscar Isaac.
I love that scene. Literally, it's all black behind him.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see anything, so it's just you and that character.
Yeah,
in that moment.
Yeah, there are
and it's not until you hear Lando's voice that it pulls up. They see more stuff in the background.
And I love the bit with Lando here.
Yeah.
Like, I love that Lando had so much to do in this movie, really. Like, it was great.
Yeah, and I love that Lando guided him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Lovely to give Lando that chance to give guidance to Poe.
Right.
And the message there is beautiful too. We had each other. That's all we had. It was enough.
Yep.
And I like the continued storyline of, because Zori had said to him as well in her conversation on top of the rooftops, you don't honestly believe that you're alone. That's what they want you to believe. That's how they win, by making you think you're alone. And essentially Lando's saying the same thing here.
Yep.
Like, our strength is in each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not in the tech. It's not in the size of our fleet. It's just that we're together, and together we can do amazing things. And that gets back to Rey running off to go do her mission and the boys not letting her go alone, so it's kind of Poe learning that lesson on a larger scale. Right.
Yeah.
Which I think is cool. Rey returns to Ahch-To, which I think is fantastic storytelling, right?
Yeah, I love
she's burning the TIE fighter.
She almost killed Ben in a fit of rage.
Yeah,
she's terrified of going to the dark side.
Yeah,
and rather than figure out how to confront it, she's torching her TIE fighter and gonna maroon herself on Ahch-To like Luke did. Like, how perfect is this bit of storytelling? Because we've all said it over and over and over again, and it's kind of a, here's the thing to all the people who didn't like Luke being there in The Last Jedi. This is what they do. They follow what their masters did. That's what Luke's masters did. Of course he did that. That's what Luke did. So that's what Rey thinks she should do.
Yeah. I failed.
We learned by example.
I gotta go. Yeah.
And then, of course, we get the chance for Luke to then make good on the final lesson from Yoda. Share your failures too. Failures are the most important thing to teach, right? And that's where he says, I was wrong.
Yep.
Like, I shouldn't have done that. Like, don't make the same mistake I made, and it's interesting because his argument about the Jedi needing to die was about their hubris and their conceited nature about how important they are and whatever. And that's exactly the same thing he was doing by isolating himself on that island. He was saying he was that important. Like, like he was there out of his own conceit for how important he is to the,
because he was
to the
the
galaxy.
great legendary master.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker.
And he's like, you got to go fight. You can't hide from things. It doesn't work. Because in the end, it comes back to find you anyway, which is what it did to him. Lots of great life lessons in this movie.
Yeah.
Really. He says to her, some things are stronger than blood, which again is kind of getting back to the Rian Johnson idea that it's not just about bloodlines. It's more than that. We get to see Leia's saber, which I think is beautiful.
I like how it's gold and silver. Like
it's got mother of pearl in it too.
Nice.
Like watch again.
Yeah.
Like there's little mother of pearl accents in the handle and stuff. It's sweet. Like when it goes on sale at Galaxy's Edge, I will probably buy one because it's beautiful.
I love how symmetrical it's out of with all the little knobs and stuff like that you see in lightsabers. Hers is like almost perfectly symmetrical also.
Yeah. I liked the flashback of Leia and Luke training. I thought the CGI of them was well done there. And beautiful to kind of see almost romanticized young versions of them.
Yeah.
In a final scene together. I thought that was really cool. Also, it sounds like, according to Luke, Leia went all the way through
her training,
what he had laid out as training for her.
Yeah.
Which is not quite how things have been portrayed in the novels, but maybe not necessarily. Leia made the decision that she wasn't going to be a Jedi the way Luke was going to be a Jedi because she felt like she had other things to do. Also maybe played up by the fact that she had this vision, so they kind of
I took it as what he said. It wasn't the last day of her training, but the last day she trained.
Oh, that's possible.
Because she chose to stop from that moment on.
Because she'd never be a full Jedi, and she saw that.
And she saw that, and she saw that there was a different purpose for her, and so she stopped. That's how I understood.
That may have also been right at the time that she sensed she was pregnant.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
it's a good call.
Yeah,
very interesting. Luke raising his X-Wing is a beautiful nod to his Empire training.
Yeah.
And it's Yoda's theme.
Yeah. And the kind of smile and nod that he gives to Rey is almost breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
To the audience, like, hey, look,
like, hey,
I finally did it.
Yep.
I figured it out.
R2 restores 3PO. That was a fun little sequence too.
I was trying to figure out, where in 3PO's timeline
so
was he?
When
right before he left to go on the mission.
So when he talks to R2 before, like, you are my best friend.
Right.
That's when they reset it. Or that's when he backed it up.
Well, because that was the last time R2. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
So that's like,
so when we saw the bit where he says, R2, you've been my best friend like all this time, that was probably right after they did the backup.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
That's why they were hanging out together at that moment.
Right. Yeah. Because they probably, before C-3PO would head out on any sort of missions, probably would do a backup just in case.
Right. But you don't get the conversation of the friendship bit in 3PO coming back. He's like, I'm going on a mission. Rey's first Mistress mission. Rey's first mission. You know, like, so it was like just before that conversation we saw earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's fun. It was just fun to see 3PO kind of return back. The whole, wait, I've already gone? We get to see Poe give his big motivational speech to
which
everybody.
was a mixture of things of what people had told him.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much.
Yeah.
Gathering all the inspiration that he'd
Leia,
been given.
Zori, Lando, all that.
Yeah.
It was a mixture of,
Yeah. But this is where Poe finally becomes a real leader. And it's I think it's a really nice character moment.
Yep.
Then we go to the Sith Temple and the battle over Exegol. Which just, I mean, so much is going on in the sky. In this
Jesus.
Like and I gotta say this, the special effects in this movie are fantastic.
Oh.
You know, like I'm nowhere anywhere in this film do I feel pulled out by low quality effects. Like this is top notch effects work all the way through. The whole Sith Temple thing, the Star Wars movies grow beyond Lucas, adapting more ideas from animated stories and novels. That's what I wrote in my notes, which we've kind of talked about already through the course of this. The Ralph McQuarrie throne, right? That Emperor Palpatine throne is straight out of the Ralph McQuarrie design work that he did for Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
That was the original artwork for what they thought they might do for the throne room.
Oh.
That
sprawling out.
The kind of like rock sprawling type throne. Got it.
They pulled that straight out of Ralph McQuarrie artwork, which I love that they've done that so much.
That's cool.
In the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
Because they've gone back and looked at Ralph McQuarrie's work and said, let's adapt that. Let's adapt that. This throne is gorgeous. You know, it's
sinister gorgeous, but it's
it's sinister. It looks powerful and just angry. You know, like,
it's rough. It's
I love it.
Sharp.
I love it. The Sith faithful are in full chant. And damn, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And I just wrote,
because when that flash happens, and all of a sudden you look behind Rey. And it's just like,
and she turns and looks at them, and it's a sea of black hoods.
Black hoods. You're just like, whoa, there is a lot of people here.
I just wrote down Rey's facing down a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And she is alone at this point. Junior, Akbar's son's an X-Wing pilot.
Right.
So the Mon Cal that we see talking to them couple times throughout the film, that's Admiral Akbar's son, and you can hear them call him Junior a couple of times.
Yep.
in the movie, which I think is cool. Lots of stuff goes on between Rey and the Emperor. You know, I think the kind of key moment is when he says to her, you know, Luke had his father to save him. You know,
you have nobody.
The only family you have here is me.
Yeah.
Right. That's dark and terrifying. You know? And it comes back to that idea that they said a few times in the movie. They win by making us think we're alone.
Yep.
And that's really what the Emperor always does. If you go back to Return of the Jedi, that's what he's trying to do to Luke in the throne room there. You know, your friends are out there. You're here. Strike me down. You're the only person who can do it. You know, you're by yourself.
You're the only one that can save them.
Yeah. And he's doing the same thing to Rey here.
Same bit.
He did
that. It's exact same. Opens the skylight.
Shows all, and you're like, okay, well, we're going this route again.
Yep. And that's
like,
that's the same thing he did to Anakin all throughout the prequel trilogy.
Philosophy. It's the philosophy.
Because he kept telling him, you know, they don't appreciate you. The Jedi don't see your worth, you know, but I do, you know, like over and over again, trying to separate them from the people that they're close to. Ben rushes in. There's a couple of moments in this that I love. I love when he jumps into the chasm and crashes into the chain and goes, wow.
Yeah. No, he's a little fumbly.
It's the first time we've ever seen a character in these movies like struggle with superhuman moves.
Right. Yeah. All these times they can do all this stuff and like, oh, no, he's okay. You know, like.
Just kind of a lovely little moment. And then when he rushes into the one hallway, he shoots behind him like his dad did in The Force Awakens.
Yep.
There's so many good Han Solo connections that he does. Yeah, obviously that one. Sliding. Han slid everywhere he would go. There's a part in the hallway where he
would slide in hallways.
He would slide into the hallway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then later on, when he gets the lightsaber, it's the exact same little shrug. Han gave outside the bunker in Return of the Jedi.
Right?
Yeah, the hands out and the little slight head tilt and stuff. So yeah, there's some wonderful moments there of seeing Han and Ben. You know, like it was there and it was always there.
Yeah, but it's definitely at the forefront now. Yep. And Ben Solo is absolutely Han Solo's kid.
Yeah.
We also get Force Time Private Call Edition.
Yeah.
I love this bit because you don't actually see them talk to each other. Right?
No. It's a couple facial.
You see a couple facial ticks.
Yeah.
You know, but the Emperor doesn't see it at all.
Yep.
Right? Which means that they're making these calls on their own now, whereas before Snoke was making those connections.
Yeah.
I kind of wondered a little bit for a while through the movie, like, is the Emperor still like connecting them, or, you know, what's going on here? No, they're absolutely making these calls on their own.
Yeah.
They've got that dyad thing going.
Yeah.
Which he can't see. He doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
Which gets back to one of the conversations I had before, that I don't think that true dark side users understand love.
No.
And can't see it. They can't see acts of love.
No.
And at this point,
which
I don't
is why
think the Emperor can even see that Ben Solo has come in.
Right. Which is why he couldn't foresee Darth Vader choosing love and saving Luke.
Yep.
He didn't see that his love for his kid eventually would honestly just win out, you know? Yep. So he didn't see this either. And what I love about this Force call, whatever we want to call it, Ben reached out again. He's not physically offering his hand, but he is there offering his hand, and she took it.
Yeah. And again, Daisy Ridley plays such subtle moments of realization in her face in this scene. She's just a lovely girl.
She had subtle, and so did
she's so lovely.
So did Adam Driver too. Yeah. The moment when you can tell in Adam's face, and it's so slight, but it was like, yes, you know, like,
yeah. But what I liked about Daisy Ridley's performance here is she's facing down the Emperor, but also trying to communicate with Kylo without giving it away.
Yep.
Right. But giving enough to the audience that we can tell that she senses that Ben has arrived. Right. It's so subtle and so well played. I mean, Daisy Ridley really acted her freaking socks off in this movie. I love it. And all of them did.
Yep.
And when she puts the blade behind her back and then Ben pulls it out from behind his back.
And she just goes, ta-da, like this. I was like,
there's the epitome of all of these Force Time calls coming to absolute fruition here.
Yep.
And
the progression of them, because they all progressed with different things. And if you just felt annoyed by them or didn't really pay attention to the progression of these calls. And yes, I think the start of them was Snoke and Palpatine and manipulation, but I do think of, like, and we've talked about this, Kylo Ren / Ben starting to try to just analyze it a little bit and take advantage of the moments when they were happening to try to figure some more stuff out and learn as to why can we do this and stuff. Yeah. And then eventually I think it was starting to happen on its own. I think when he was starting to search for her, Ben was starting to make the calls. He was starting to figure out how to do it because he was searching.
I think it actually started in Last Jedi.
It did when she's boarding onto the Falcon to leave, and he reaches out to her. He reaches out to her there. That's where it becomes their own thing,
right?
Because I remember asking, I was like, "Who's connecting that call? Is that them, or like what's going on here?" You know, because Snoke made it very clear that he was the one that connected them before, and even Ben was saying that the distances they were communicating at originally would have been too much for them to sustain.
Yeah.
But they started figuring it out on their own. Wedge Antilles. makes a brief appearance. And I paid attention again last night. I'm fairly certain
he is definitely
he's in the gun turret of the Millennium Falcon.
No, he is, because he's wearing the headset.
Yeah. So I think that's just totally
and
cool.
he spins. He slightly spins just like it. Yeah, he's absolutely.
Yeah, and he's commenting on Lando's flying, which, Lando's flying the Falcon.
I specifically looked last night to just make sure, because I was more just like, oh my God, it's Wedge.
Right. Yeah,
and again, he's not in fighter outfit either.
Fighter. He's not wearing a helmet.
Yeah.
So
very cool to see Wedge until he's back. So as happy as I was to see Wedge back, I do feel like there was a missed character moment. Because of the Aftermath novels and the Resistance novel that leads into Force Awakens that I've been reading. I haven't quite finished it, but Wedge Antilles is Snap Wexley's stepfather.
Oh,
right. And it dawned on me last night that Snap dies right before Wedge shows up. Right. It's like 2 beats, one right after the other, really. And it's unfortunate. I think if I was making the movie, I would edit it slightly differently so that Snap dies.
You have a reaction
shortly after, which would have given Wedge a moment to have an emotional reaction to Snap being killed and then carrying into the fight, Tiny little thing. If you're a novel reader,
it
would have been nice to see that moment tying those 2 characters together in the films, but still great to see Wedge one way or the other. Especially since Dennis Lawson kind of implied that like he didn't really have any desire to come back to Star Wars either. So just to even have him in for like one line is cool.
he told, when Ewan McGregor asked his uncle, hey, so I might have this part to do Star Wars and stuff. Do you have some advice? Yeah, don't do it. Is basically what he told Ewan McGregor.
Right.
So Ewan loves telling that story.
Yeah, they're kind of silly films anyway.
Yeah, they're kind of silly films anyway,
The Emperor's batteries are fully charged. Whoa. Kind of a Harry Potter-esque
it's a
moment
Death Eater
where he Death Eaters the 2 of them to absorb their life powers. Whatever. I mean, where are you going to go with this storyline?
Well, I mean, it makes sense.
He's kind of a vampire anyway, right? Like he feeds off of everything all the time.
Yeah, he's sucking the force out of them. I mean that kind of.
If you establish that you can heal somebody, by providing them with force energy, it would make sense that somebody could also pull force energy out of you to revitalize themselves.
Yes.
Right. So.
Well, and he has spent all this time trying to figure out how to, because he said that, we'll find out how to bring someone back from the dead, or how to, so why, I could see how he would spend all this time also still trying to figure out how to heal himself.
Well, it's implied that he killed Darth Plagueis.
Yeah.
Right? Well, maybe that's how he killed Darth Plagueis. And maybe he's always known that he can do this.
Yes.
But he wasn't going to share that with Anakin ever.
He definitely seemed shocked on how little he took, and his fingers like grew back, though. I think he didn't realize how powerful those 2 of them were together.
Yeah. And that's when he goes, a dyad, not been seen in generations, so.
Yeah, but I think that is what caused him to realize that they were a dyad,
Yeah. Well, in that case, then I will become the Emperor.
Right?
Just take back my control.
Exactly. Like, to hell with Rey.
I don't have to give it up. I don't have to give it up. I can just keep going.
I don't have to live on as a ghost in her. Like, I can revitalize this body, and now that I know how to do it, I can do it over and over again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, I love the sequence where Rey's laying on her back, staring up into the heavens, and she goes into that meditation, be with me, which was how we started the movie with her. She was trying to contact the voices of Jedi in the past. The way the camera floats up past everything into the stars. And then we have the voices of all those Jedi from all the movies, all the animated series. Just lovely and hard to keep track of whose voice.
Oh God, I have no idea.
Oh yeah, because
I hope they do like a bonus feature that like breaks down who's who, like because there's so many in there.
I mean, there's a whole separate section of the credits just for the voices.
No, I know,
of the
but I would like to know which one
yeah.
said what.
Yeah,
you know,
very
like
cool.
yeah.
And
I'm sure someone will do a YouTube breakdown at some point.
And you hear Anakin. There is one part where Anakin definitively is talking to her, saying, "Bring balance to the Force as I did."
Yeah,
right. It's kind of lovely.
Yeah.
Speaking of the cinematography, like this is one of the things that we were talking about earlier, and this is one of those scenes that's my favorite. The lightning strikes and the flashes that are all throughout this entire scene.
Yeah,
are some of the flashes we've never kind of lighting that we've never seen in Star Wars. And when she's on her back and it's in her eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is so pretty.
Yeah.
And then again, that zoom
Daisy
out.
Ridley has those like big Disney eyes.
Yeah.
You know, like just like gorgeous eyes that reflect.
Yeah. But the fact that you could see the reflection of the lightning that was going up, being shot up into the sky.
And the flickers all over the place. And the flashes, just black light every once in a while. Just awesome.
Yeah. And I just loved hearing all those voices.
Yep.
You know, everyone from Yoda to Kanan to Luke.
I picked out Ahsoka's.
Yeah, she's in the left channel.
Yeah.
Towards the back.
Mace. A lot of the females I didn't know, but I'm assuming it's maybe like Shakti and like a couple of the other.
Ayla Secura is in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of the characters that were in the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
But I just love that Rey seeks the Jedi for comfort, peace, and strength at this moment. So much of spiritual teachings are about, in desperate moments, grounding yourself, centering yourself, reaching out, you know, for strength beyond your strength.
Right.
You know?
Well,
and she'd been struggling with it up to this point, finding them and talking to them. And I think partially because she had so much doubt about who she was, but in this moment, she knows who she is. She is,
and what she wants to do.
She is the person who needs to take down Palpatine, but she needs to do it the right way, right? And
this is her destiny.
This is her destiny.
And she's accepting it. But what I mean, again, the first thing Palpatine does is gets rid of Ben.
Right.
So before she comes to again, he gets rid of him, you know, so that when she comes to, she is alone. Again, she's alone and having to do this alone, you know?
Yeah.
So the only other way she can reach out to not feel alone is to try to, you know, be one with the Force and do that. So
and to know that she's never alone.
And that she's never alone, and that she has the backing of 1,000 Jedis in her, you know.
And I like that they start the voices with Ewan McGregor, because in The Force Awakens, he says, Rey, these are your first steps.
Yep. And
in the final, it starts with him saying, Rey, these are your final steps. These are her final steps to becoming a Jedi, right? She has to confront Palpatine and bring him down, much the way Luke had to confront Vader, you know, like they all have their final trial, right? And when you watch enough of the Clone Wars and stuff, you really get into that there are trials that the Jedi have to go through. Obi-Wan became a Jedi Master by defeating Darth Maul.
Yep.
Right? They all have their thing that they have to do that pushes them into the final stage of being a full Jedi. And this was her moment. Right. And, I just loved it. I loved how it was played. And then I love how she defeats Palpatine. The lines are a little corny. Let's face it. I love Ian McDiarmid, but he is so over the top as the Emperor in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Right? He's just like, this is the last time I'm ever going to get to play this character. Full monster, you know,
Oh, yeah.
like he takes it to like Hammer Studios levels of like insanity with the
Yeah,
Emperor.
love it.
Which is great. You know, it's totally fine with me. Absolutely enjoyable to watch him chew up scenery. And the whole, you know, I am all the Sith, you know, and then she gets her I am Iron Man moment,
Yeah,
essentially.
basically.
You know,
Yeah.
like, well, I am all the Jedi, which, you know, goes back to what Luke said to her, 1,000 generations lives in you,
Yep.
you know, and there were always more Jedi than there were Sith.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So technically speaking, if that's the case, she should be more powerful than
Yep.
him. But she defeats him not by striking him down with a lightsaber. She goes in full defense mode.
Yep.
She defeats him just by defending herself. which I
Defending
think is
herself,
lovely.
and literally it just deflects back.
Which
Is
I
how
think is poetic, because
this is
the
how he
destruction
started.
of the Emperor is done in the same way the Emperor was born.
Yep,
Right?
exactly.
Like, through abuse of his own power, and he annihilates even himself. The disintegration of
So
the
Indiana,
Emperor is so Indiana Jones.
So Indiana
it's a
Jones.
lovely nod to Indiana
so Indiana Jones, yeah.
So, I mean,
Don't look, don't look.
kudos to J.J. Abrams.
Yep.
He found another way to pay tribute. He's got the Goonies reference. He's got the Indiana Jones reference. Like, it's all here. Like,
I'm sure there's more. We just didn't catch them yet.
that man loves Spielberg.
Yep.
Let's be honest. Finn senses that Rey's dying.
Yeah.
Like, if you hadn't been clear to this
If
point,
you didn't catch on
that
yet.
Finn is force sensitive, this is your moment.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because the only people we've ever seen sense other people dying from a distance are Jedi.
Our Jedi.
Right? So here it is.
Yep.
You know, I think that there's a lot of story left for Finn to be told.
Yeah.
You know, I could easily see more movies being made around his character.
Yeah.
And following him on journeys as he discovers who he is, you know. Finn could become a Jedi at some point, as far as I'm concerned. I don't see why that storyline couldn't play out.
Mm-hmm.
He's already wielded a lightsaber.
Yep.
It's been said in legends and stuff in
Yeah.
the past that only people who have strength in the Force can actually wield a lightsaber in a
Yes.
battle.
Yeah.
Right? Like the power of those blades is too much for you to use without some Force capability.
Oh.
So, you know,
Yeah. That part I knew. So like when it happened in Force Awakens, and I remember hearing a bunch of people going, excuse me, I thought only Jedi. I said, well, not necessarily Jedi, but you have to be more in tune with the Force, I think is what it was, you know, but yeah. Yeah.
The final redemption of Ben Solo.
So to see the pullback, and then you get that hand, you know, like,
It reminds me of our Star Wars short from years and years ago.
God, it's so funny. But you get the hand, you know. I was like, one, I mean, his fall and his hit, you know, that his body took and stuff. You see the hand and you're like, are you for reals? You know, like, I'm all, wow, talk about some,
Well, I don't think he hit anything. I don't think he hit bottom.
no, he bounced off down into the hole.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, like, he hit hard. So
well,
I love what the Emperor says to him when he tosses him.
Yeah.
It's like, now you know how like the last guy went, you
Skywalker
fall.
threw me down a hole. I'm going to fuck you up now.
right.
You're going to pay for your entire lineage. You know? We said it numerous times. My belief was the only full redemption for Ben Solo would be his selfless sacrifice.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we get here.
Yeah.
We get a selfless sacrifice. He's learned from Rey that you can transfer your Force to heal.
Yeah.
They're both weakened at this point, you know, and
Yeah.
like you said, and he's crawling to try and get to her. I
he's
mean,
crawling, and he shouldn't
obviously
even be
messed up.
walking on.
But he's shown
yeah.
before that he can tap into the Force to overcome serious injury.
Yeah, I mean,
right? He did it with the dark side when he got shot by Chewie. But I imagine here he's doing it with the light side. You know, he's pulling light side energy to try and get to Rey.
Yeah.
You know, and let's face it, he was trying to come up that hole to help her battle Palpatine.
Yeah.
Right. But he gets there and she's already done.
And he's looked around and he's just looking to see what she's done. And he's like, oh my God, she pulled it off.
Yeah.
She did it.
Yeah. But he gets to her and she's dead.
Yep.
Right. I think it's lovely the way they handled Ben's redemption.
Yep.
He has a choice to make right here.
Yep.
You know, and he's never healed anybody, like, you know, but he's going to try. And he's only got so much energy left. He's on the verge of dying himself. You know, I mean, let's face it, that's what Palpatine was doing, was sucking all their life energy out. So he gives her what he has left, you know, and they have that brief moment where they can connect as two light side users, you know, and they kiss, and all the little teeny bopper.
That was so funny.
Ben Swallow fangirls, you know, the Reylo shippers. Like went nuts in the theater. And then, of course, he dies and they all start crying. I couldn't help but laugh.
All of us did.
I'm like, life's tough, bitches.
And I never thought of that as a love kiss. Kind of like Finn and, like you pointed out, Finn and Rose.
J.J. Abrams said that even in his eyes, he views them more as brother and sister.
Yes.
And he viewed it as a brother and sister kiss.
When you were talking about it earlier with Finn and Rose.
Yeah, it
is
kind of thing.
Yep, exactly.
But if somebody wants to read that as a romantic kiss, I got no problem with that.
Yeah, I don't. You know what? I don't.
Their connection is way different from Finn and Rose.
Yes. Oh, completely. And I'm not putting it, but I never got ever a romance vibe. Even when she says, I would have taken Ben's hand.
Mm-hmm.
It was just respect, admiration, and just a good connection.
And a desire to save one another.
Yes.
You know, like, I think it's a beautiful moment. I don't think it needs to be overanalyzed.
No.
Yeah. Kiss, you know, if you're a Reylo shipper, cool.
Great.
You know, like that, it's something for everybody at this point. You know, I think it plays any way you want it to play. And the fact that Ben then collapses and vanishes.
And it's not a gentle collapse. It is, okay,
he's
it's
just
done.
dead. He's gone.
Dead.
Yep.
Gone.
And
then he vanishes fast.
Quick.
Yeah.
Like, there's no linger. And then he's gone.
Yeah. I mean, he gave himself up, you know, to the Force at that point.
And then Leia follows.
And then Leia follows, which
she waited for her son.
Well, I think
that's how I look at it.
I think she was still putting her Force into her, even though she's there physically.
Yeah. If you're talking about Force ghosts and Force energy and whatnot, I like to think of the idea that, like, she Force connected with him as she lost energy in her own body, and her body wasn't going to leave until the task was done, you know, like,
yeah,
because her own Force energy can't move on to the Force until Ben's does.
Right.
Right. It's the last act of a loving mother. She put what energy she had into him, and it was all her ability to go on to the Force and become one with the Force was dependent on whether or not he achieved that himself.
Right.
Yep. He had Maz looking over.
And we talk about that connection again that Leia had with Ben.
Yep.
You know, like, he was able to kill his dad, and he loved his dad. We see that in this film for sure.
Yep.
But he had a different connection with his mom. And if you read the novels,
well, I mean, it would make sense. But I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense. If your mom is Force sensitive and your mom is a Jedi,
he's got a different connection to his mother.
He's got a different connection to his mother.
And even in the novels, when she's pregnant with him, you know, he would squirm and have emotional reactions to the emotions of things going on around her, you know, and she'd have to reach in with the Force to talk to him in the womb, even, you know, and calm him down there, you know.
Wow.
there's some beautiful moments in the novels between her and her unborn son. And I just feel like this whole piece here is a connection to that unknown force connection between a force sensitive mother and a force sensitive child.
Right.
Which in the Jedi world would not have been explored because of the separation of the children from their families at young ages. You would never have had that same kind of connection long term because of that separation at a very early age in life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. We get back to the idea that the Jedi had conceits and absolutes that they lived by, one of which was sever all connections, right? You shouldn't have romantic or loving connections to people. But in the end, it is that very thing that defeats the Emperor.
Yeah.
Right? That allows the light to finally defeat the dark, is that loving connection between family.
Twice.
Right? So again, the Jedi weren't perfect.
No.
That's the thing about the sequel trilogy and all of the animated series, the Clone Wars and Rebels, and even if you get into the prequel trilogy,
Yep.
the Jedi were not perfect.
Nope.
And Luke says in The Last Jedi, now that they're extinct, the Jedi have been deified and revered. And he's like, but their legacy is failure.
Yeah. Letting Sidious come out of nowhere in their top.
Yeah. So I think part of the big storyline here all throughout is like, don't be so conceited.
Mm-hmm.
Like be humble, be open, be connected to the people around you. None of us function alone. And Jedi really tried to function alone. Interesting. The Sith are gone and day comes to Exegol, right? Did you notice that? Sunlight started pouring through all those dark clouds as they're flying away. They're flying into open skies. And one of the things they were worried about when they came there was like gravity wells and torrents and tornadoes and like whatever. Like, this is a crazy place to fly. That was all the Emperor.
Yeah.
It was the Sith power in the Sith temple creating all that turmoil around Exegol. Once
created the barrier so that
it's all done. It's gone. We get to see Cloud City.
Yep.
We get to see Endor and Wicket.
Yep.
Cool to see Wicket. We get to see Jakku one more time. Again, like, this movie really does try to pay tribute to so much of Star Wars lore. Great to see all these different places in one final shot. And in all three of those planets, we're seeing people rising up and bringing down the First Order.
Yep.
So a Star Destroyer is being split in half over Endor. And over Jakku and Cloud City, both we see Star Destroyers.
Yep.
Poe and Zori. That final bit with Poe and Zori is fucking great.
Again, just looks, and little shrugs and
yeah, so what the depth of story between the two of them is there. Like, I really would love to see them explore that storyline out a little bit. Even if it's just a limited series on Disney Plus, like, I think that'd be great.
Yep.
Maz Kanata hands Chewie a medal. I believe Leia's holding the medal when she lays down to try and communicate with Kylo.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it's
Han's
medal.
That would be my guess.
So lovely to see Maz give Chewie a medal.
Yep.
It's Han's medal, which is probably the medal that would be the most special to his heart anyway. And Chewie deserves a damn medal.
Yeah.
Right. We get our three heroes united. I think it's a beautiful scene. They don't really talk. They just hug and cry. And like, there's so much emotion involved through.
I can imagine. I wonder if that is I think it was. I think it's the final shot that they actually shot also.
Yes.
So
which
the
is
one
why-
tears
which is
are all real.
those are
Yeah,
all
so, like-
real tears.
Yeah,
of
because
it.
like Finn is just, I mean, he's like weeping like yeah. But yeah, that was, and I think JJ actually kind of did that on purpose.
a lot of times you should.
Yeah.
The most
Because
emotional
that is the most
moment
emotional thing,
should be
you know,
shot
that they're
last.
finishing this. Yeah, absolutely.
Filmmaker 101.
Yeah.
The movie could have ended there, and
It
I
could
think
have.
everybody would have been fine. But it continues,
Mm-hmm.
and we get to visit Tatooine one final time,
Yep, the duels.
at
And
least one final time in the Skywalker Saga.
I love this.
Burying the
Well, before that,
or
the fact that she
visiting-
slides down.
she slides down, which is a total callback to The Force Awakens.
The very
She
first
slides
time you
down
see
on
her, yep.
Jakku. Yeah, it's a lovely little bit. We get to see the dining table where the blue milk scene happened. Lovely to visit the Skywalker
Homestead.
homestead one last time. And then she buries Luke and Leia's lightsabers, which at first when I saw that happening, I'm like, what are you doing? You know, like, why are you getting rid of all the lightsabers? Something's going to come up. Like, you're going to need a lightsaber, you know?
yeah.
But lovely tribute to bury them together. The twins who were separated for so much
Yeah.
of their life,
Buried together.
buried together on their family homestead.
Family-ish.
It's the largest homestead. But,
Yeah.
you
I was
know,
going to
that's
say, I'm
where-
like, it's the
That's where
large.
Shmi finished her life. That's where Luke grew up.
Yeah.
So, you know, for all intents and purposes,
It's where Luke called home.
yeah, for a family that doesn't really have their own homestead, that's the closest.
That's the
they've
closest to a homestead they have. Yeah.
got. That's where Shmi's buried. That's where Luke and Leia's, really their lightsabers are all that's left of them. So, just lovely and a cool sequence too. The way she used the Force to kind of just churn the sand underneath, and they gently descended in.
Yeah.
And then she ignites her lightsaber, which I thought was fucking badass.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned it.
I said it all the time when the first posters and stuff came out and you looked at her deal. I'm like, you know, the top edge of her bow staff could make a cool lightsaber.
Yep, exactly.
There it is. I was like, that's sweet.
And I love it's a spin to turn it on.
Yeah, it's a rotating ignition. Really cool. And like little blades come up to open up the top so the blade can come out. Like really neat design.
And
Yeah.
the fact that it's yellow.
And it's yellow, which has significance in the Star Wars universe.
Absolutely.
Because there was a certain order within the Jedi that had yellow lightsabers. Sentinels, I think is what they were called. But they were like, they didn't stay at the temple. They didn't wear traditional Jedi robes. They did all like they were
a little bit more of the gray Jedi. They kind of embraced both
they were
sides.
very much the gray Jedi.
Ahsoka ends up getting a yellow blade.
Ahsoka has a whole bunch of blades. She
Yeah.
goes through a bunch of different blades. Her final blades are white.
Right.
But there is a period of time where she has a yellowish green blade. But Ahsoka herself also kind of had a bit of a dark light side to her. She had an impulse to be angry often, which made her the perfect apprentice to Anakin Skywalker. And then here's the thing that works for some people, doesn't work for others. Rey adopts the name Skywalker. Personally, I'm totally fine with that.
I think it's great.
Because I think across the board, there is very much in the sequel trilogy, especially, but even in the original, you adopt the family that you want.
Yep.
You know, like, and we kind of do that all throughout our life, right? Like some of us through marriage, some of us through the friendships we build. Rey is an orphan child, right? An orphan child can take the name of the family that raises them, right? And to a great degree, what family is the most responsible for who she finally becomes? It is the Skywalkers. It's Luke and it's Leia. who help her find her path. Why wouldn't she adopt that name for herself?
Especially when Palpatine is not a good name to her.
To carry.
Well, yeah, or in the rest of the galaxy is not necessarily a great name also.
No. So, I have no problem with this, and I think it's the best kind of tribute that the character can make in the end to the people she cared about and loved. She could have just as easily taken on Solo, but I think that would have made all the Reylo shippers go freaking nuts. And why go there? But I like that she took the name Skywalker. And of course, if you look at the name of the film,
it's Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker,
there is no more Skywalkers to continue on.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we talked about it casually ourselves when we saw the first trailer, and that was the name. It's like, okay, she either is a Skywalker or she's going to adopt the name Skywalker, or that's what she'll start calling the new Jedi Order. Skywalker, like we figured it was be something like that.
Yeah.
I also, technically his last name is Solo, but really it's also the rise again of Ben Skywalker Solo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
It's true. So, I love the movie.
Yep.
I've seen it 3 times.
I've not bored by a moment.
Never bored. Not bored at all. The movie moves way too fast to be bored.
Nope.
I can see a few things here and there that people would not like, and totally fine with that. I get it. Not every movie is going to please everybody, but we talked about the amount of weight that this film carried on its shoulders and how much story they tried to complete in a satisfying way. I can't imagine a better attempt at that than what this is. And for me as a lifelong fan, it's immensely satisfying. It's not perfect, but it's as perfect as I could have hoped for based on all the things that it had to try and accomplish. And I'm excited for where Star Wars gets to go now, because now that they don't have to adhere to this, story structure, this, there's talk that they might not do trilogies anymore, which I think is fine, because that's kind of what Marvel has done. They've moved away from trilogy stuff and just, here's the universe. Let's tell a bunch of stories through it. And occasionally they'll come together, like if they go that route with Star Wars, I think that's totally okay. Make event movies where the lower stories come together, and, and there's so much they can do with the Disney Plus setup.
Well, I was just gonna say that too. I'm like, with how well Mandalorian is obviously doing, they're definitely going to exploit that.
Yeah. Well, and you haven't seen the finale yet.
Nope.
And there's some big revelations in that, which could have larger implications across for a show that by and large has avoided being super connected to the lore. They finish it being super connected to lore.
Mm-hmm.
So, be interesting to see where season 2 of that show goes, and what they do with the Cassian Andor series and Obi-Wan, and there's a lot of Star Wars content coming. And I imagine over the next 12 months to 18 months, we'll start hearing what they're going to be doing with the films. So stay tuned. We'll be covering it all here. Sci-Fi Sunday for sure. Any final thoughts on the Skywalker Saga before we sign off?
I absolutely love it. Yeah. This movie in particular, I still have my top 3, and they're not really in any particular order. There are always the ends. It's Revenge, it's Return, and this. I love what this one did. It wrapped this sequel trilogy, plus it wrapped the entire thing very well. There's a couple unanswered questions here and there, but they're minor. For me, this was about as perfect of a Star Wars film as I could have asked for.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's little things that could have been slightly better or whatever, but twice now I've walked out of that theater going, this is awesome. And again, it's from us being nerds and really deep diving into this stuff, but watching and analyzing everything that we've watched the last 9 weeks.
9 weeks.
Yep. It's been fun.
We did 7, but yeah, we did 9 films in 7 weeks. But yeah.
Gotcha. Excuse me.
Close.
It's just been a fun ride.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie is just straight up fun.
Yeah.
Which is great. I think all these last 3, for the most part, have just been really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree with that. Theresa, any final thoughts?
Yeah, this is definitely one of my tops. I'm sure the more I get to watch it, I have a feeling it might become my favorite, in all honesty. The writing in this is probably I would say almost the best writing of all the Star Wars, just because of what it had to do with finalizing some of these character arcs, and some of these arcs or characters that have been around for so long, and making the connections and finding out where do you go from here, I could only imagine how difficult it would be to write this.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that because of just how big of a task this was, if the writing wasn't going to work, it doesn't matter how pretty or anything. If they couldn't figure out how to write this to be able to, like Mikey said, it wasn't just the end of the sequels. It was the end of nine films.
And they really treated it as the end of 9 films.
Treated it as the end of 9 films. So, and not just that, the end of this big, long universe saga. So it's not necessarily just the Skywalker, but all the other things like the Clone Wars and, all that stuff is all linked in to all of this.
More in this movie than any other, which is great.
This time period of the universe, And so, yeah, I mean, it's a 42-year war, this has been going on forever. So yeah, I was worried. I was very concerned about how this would actually close up and stuff, but I'm very happy. I'm very happy with how it was done. And like you and I said, we had talked about the only way to redeem Ben Solo. But yeah, he'd need to sacrifice himself. Absolutely. But it's gotta be done right. And I was very happy with the way it was done. Extremely happy.
Yeah, I'm glad that it wasn't like a lightsaber through his chest kind of sacrifice.
Yeah, he didn't jump in front of the lightsaber that was about to strike her down, or do anything that he very selflessly, because he could have kept living. Nobody would know. Nobody, he could have, by the time I got up, no, this was a much bigger choice, because it wasn't just in the reactionary moment to save her. It was a very thought out, okay, well, she's dead. I mean, to go, you know what, but I will give, how many times, you've heard these sorts of things, I wish I could take your pain away, or, if I could swap, swap, just so that this person deserves to be here more. I mean, that's what he did.
Mm-hmm.
He chose that this universe needed her.
Right.
And she needed to be here. And he cared for her that much that he gave himself for that. And that's how I loved that this was done. And so because it was that way, and it wasn't a reactionary save and a battle and this and that, it was that kind of choice. It makes it everything.
Nice. There's a continual thread in this film about facing fear.
Yep.
Right. J.J. Abrams has been known for not liking endings. He shies away from ending stuff.
Lost.
Right? Well, I mean, he shot the pilot of Lost. That was it.
No.
Then Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse ran the show.
Yeah.
Right. Alias, same sort of thing. Like he kicked off the series.
He started it, but he doesn't finish.
But he doesn't stay for the ends,
Got it.
He starts a lot of things and then leaves. Like even the Star Trek movies. He did those first two, and then he didn't do the third one. He has a TED Talk where he talks about what excites him is the mystery box, not what's inside. Right? Like there's a kind of continual theme in J.J. Abrams over the years, if you've followed his career, which I have, where he starts out stories really strong. He's got great middles, but his endings aren't terribly good. He's just not.
He's not a finisher.
He's not a finisher. And he's come on record saying that in the last 6 months in interviews and stuff, like endings scare him. Like, he has a hard time with endings. And I think that's some of what you're seeing in the writing in this all throughout too, is like, it's the destiny of Jedi to face fear, like to stare your fear down and tackle it. That's what J.J. Abrams was doing through this entire movie, is a lot of endings. There's a lot of endings.
And he wrapped up a lot.
He threw every ending into this, but
he wasn't supposed to be.
No, because he did The Force Awakens, and then
that was it.
Executive producing and walked away.
He kicked off the ending.
Kicked it off. But
he wasn't going to finish the ending.
And he talked about the fact that when he and Lawrence Kasdan wrote The Force Awakens, they talked hypothetically about where they thought the story would go and how potentially, the framework would be for the next two movies and stuff. But it really was left to Rian Johnson and Colin Trevorrow to finish out the story.
Right.
And wherever they wanted to take things was going to be fine, So he had his own ideas on where he wanted the things to go, or where he thought they might go, which is why I think why I think there is so much cohesion in how this ended, is because he did think those things through.
Right.
Rian Johnson took things a little bit different direction in the second story than he thought they might go, but it didn't derail his thoughts of what the storyline would be at the end. But he very much seemed to be facing that fear head on by taking this movie on when the opportunity came up. And I think so much of the story is kind of based around that same thing he was going through himself, facing down his fear and facing all of these endings. There's so many endings in this, he closes out so many storylines. I mean, but he does it in a much more enjoyable fashion, I think, than even, the final, Lord of the Rings movie did. Like that movie had a ton of endings.
That movie never stopped.
But they felt like, it's done. Oh, no credits. Oh, we're into another ending. Yep. Here's another ending. So the movie's done, right? Oh no, there's another ending here. Like you felt all those endings as individual endings. This movie ties up so many stories and so many thought threads of the Star Wars saga, but does it in a satisfying way that doesn't feel like you're doing a lot of endings. It's like, and it feels like there's a lot of beginnings for new stories that can be told too, which is really exciting and kind of cool. So, my hat's off to J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio for the writing on this. I know what a monster of a film to try and tackle. And I think they did as good a job as anybody possibly could have hoped for.
The force is strong with these two.
We got to watch, you guys got to watch the final episode of The Mandalorian. Hopefully we can get that recorded tomorrow. Our thoughts on the series. Thank you all for joining us on this run up to the Rise of Skywalker. It's been a blast reviewing these movies with everybody. Thank you two, especially for doing the long haul with me on it.
My pleasure.
Yeah, dude.
You pitch these ideas to your buddies and your friends and your colleagues, and you hope that they follow through with you. Nice that so many of the group made it through so much. I mean, hats off to Brian too. I mean, he's been on so many of them. Not quite as many as you two, but he's been there for vast majority of them too.
Yeah.
So until next time, this is Sci-Fi Sunday. Hopefully we'll be doing a Mandalorian review tomorrow. We'll see. And at the very least, Doctor Who kicks off again on New Year's Day. So if I don't have anybody else joining me on that, I will be doing my own breakdowns of the return of Doctor Who. And if you've been enjoying this podcast, please remember that we're a member of the Gonna Geek Network at GonnaGeek.com, where you can find many more incredibly geeky podcasts like this one. You can check those out. There's new episodes of all the podcasts on that network dropping constantly. So go check it out at GonnaGeek.com. And if you like listening to us, you can hear more of us on our other podcast, The Intellectual, and you can check that out at ixe.us or find us on iTunes or really anywhere podcasts are found. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, I'm David Dawson.
I'm Theresa Dawson.
I'm Mike Peterson.
And you've been listening to Sci-Fi Sunday. We'll catch you again soon.